Okay, I got the cue button.
I'm live. Hello. Hi, everybody. I'm going to let everybody get in and get settled before I jump in, but I just wanted to say hi. Hi, Abundance Tarot. Peggy's in the peanut gallery. What's that?
I don't see it.
Are you on my channel?
No.
Peggy can't find me.
It's okay. I'm just going to be mean
Did
now.
you find it yet?
Yeah, I just did.
Oh, Peggy found it. Woo!
Woohoo!
Welcome. Peggy's got to mute her computer.
I don't want to.
Like I got my unicorn horn on. I couldn't help it. Super fun. This one's going to be tricky for me. Oh, hi, Mike. Hi, Maddie. Hi, Cleo. There's a delay from the comments that show up on YouTube to when they show up in StreamYard, which is the format that I'm using. Thank you, Cleo. So
Are you doing this with your unicorn headband on the whole time?
Absolutely. Don't judge me.
I'm not judging you. I'm just confused now.
It matches my eyeshadow. You should see Peggy's.
Now I'm judging you.
Now she's judging me. Hi, Heidi. Hi, Kaleidoscope Cat. Hi, Long Hair Skinny at Toe. Hi, Of Moon and Magic. I'm just going to say hi to everybody. This is going to be a little different. Thank you. This is going to be a little different because once I start the presentation, I won't be able to see the comments as easily. I think I've got a method where I'll be able to see some of them, but Peggy's going to be like moderating the shit out of this.
Yeah.
She's going to be.
Yeah. Be nice to me or I'll ban you all.
She's got the ban hammer right now. Before we get started, though, if you are just joining us, in fact, I should put this up on the bottom. You're going to want to grab a deck, and you're going to want to make sure you have a little room to spread out cards because this is going to be somewhat interactive. So we're going to be diving into some stuff.
Weren't your stuff all 3-card spreads?
Yes, everything's 3-card spreads, so you don't need a ton of space.
For 3 cards.
There's one spread at the end that's 5 cards.
Did you like clarify to everybody that that you are doing your Newt's presentation?
I think so. Well, I'm doing the same presentation I did at Northwest Tarot Symposium. Only when I did this at Northwest Tarot Symposium, I did not have a unicorn headband on, which I feel like is like, just really elevated it that one step higher. I'm going to change the banner really quick though, so everybody knows to grab a deck. So let me do that really quick. And let's get started. Oh, grab a tarot deck is what I should say here. Grab a tarot deck. Okay, let's see what happens. Can I? Here we go. Hi, welcome. Grab a tarot deck. I'm also going to go into the Support of Tarot Facebook group while everybody's joining us. In addition to a tarot deck, make sure you have a beverage and or a snack. And this may be one that you come back into again and again because it is going to be kind of long. At Newt's, this presentation took me about 1 hour and 20 minutes to get through, and we didn't quite get to the last spread. So I'm going to just let this unfold however it unfolds. And so it may end up going kind of long. So you can always leave whenever you want and come back to it. It will be available on my channel afterwards. So you can definitely play it back, but I just want to make sure that everybody is going to have a chance to participate and watch it. Hi, Lennon. Hi, Lisa. Hi, Essence. I don't know if there's anybody else I have missed, but if so, I'm sorry. As soon as I switch over to start presenting, I'm not going to be able to see as much. So I'm going to go post in the Support of Tarot group that I'm live. And come join us. Sorry, I should be doing this beforehand, but clearly I'm not that organized. I'm going to go throw that in there. And boom. So, there was a problem. Let's see if it fixed it. Did it fix it? Yay! Okay, so I just got it posted in Support of Tarot Facebook group. I try to remember to post over there when I'm live because sometimes I do lives spontaneously. Again, for this one, you are going to want a tarot deck handy. Thank you, Painted Owl. Really good to see you here. I keep forgetting your new name. So it always takes me that extra half second to connect you with you. But Essence, I have none. Drying clothes at the laundry. Oh, I will watch and use the deck in my head. Yeah, that's totally fine. And you'll be able to revisit. If anybody is particularly keen and wants to help me with timestamps after, I would be ever so grateful. When this is done, we can plug them into the description box. Hi, Molly. And Peggy's here. She's just over there.
I'm peeing.
She's not actively peeing.
I'm done peeing. I washed my hands.
Yeah.
And I flushed.
Good flushing, good washing. We all need to wash our hands a lot right now. I hope everybody's doing okay. I know these are crazy times. I'm hoping this will give us a good distraction. There's a couple disclaimers for this chat before we dive in and get started. So firstly, yes, you'll want a deck if you have one so that you can play along with us, but there's a lot of this chat that's going to be completely fine without a deck. You can always do exercises later. Hi, Caroline.
I can always draw 3 cards and just.
We have example cards we're going to be going through, remember?
Oh, yeah. She has example cards, so if you haven't got a deck handy, assume that those are your cards.
There you go, yeah.
Exercise.
And then you can do them on your own later with your own decks.
I'm just going to sit back here and yell because it's quicker than typing.
It is easier, it's true.
Hi, everybody.
So that's disclaimer number 1. Don't worry, you can always do stuff later. Number 2, we are getting into, I'm going to turn this banner off because it's distracting me. Hold on. Okay, so if you're just joining us, you need a deck. But I'm going to turn off this display name too. Okay, there we go. So disclaimer number 2, we get into some fairly heavy stuff because we're talking about self-worth. We're talking about our relationship with ourself. We're going to be looking at a whole bunch of that kind of thing. In case I forget to remind you again later, if this gets too intense, if this gets too heavy, if you feel like you need support to dive into some of the stuff we're going to dive into, do that. Self-care is absolutely critical for what we're doing here because whenever we're diving into really personal topics and self-worth is super personal, sometimes it's just too much. And yes, Katie, you can totally take notes. If you guys remind me, I will actually put a link up to, or I'll put a PDF of the presentation up in the Supportive Tarot Facebook group after so that you can have it for your records. Like, so you can, it'll have all the major slides in it so that you can have that as well. But yes, of course, it's okay to take notes. Absolutely. So
you could make the paperwork available as a file in the group.
I literally just said that. Peggy's not listening to me. She's like, hey, did you know you could make the file available in the group? I'm like, yo, I just announced that.
Yeah, but I've heard your presentation before. I'm trying to pay attention to all these
That's true.
People.
That's what your job is. I'm sorry. Yes. Thank you.
See? You were mean to me for
I'm cleaning tanks, so my hands are busy. Oh, that's cool. You can listen in. We'll be company. We'll keep Molly company while she cleans your tanks. So yes, make sure to really honor yourself. If it gets too heavy, if you need a break, take the break. This content isn't going anywhere. Yeah. And I think that's about it for disclaimers, yeah? Okay, great minds think alike. So yeah, so definitely we will make the presentation available if I forget. And as I said, if anybody feels like helping me with figuring out timestamps after to jump to various points in the presentation, let me know. That would be super helpful so that I don't have to watch the whole thing back. So if you want to make notes about when things happened or whatever, and let me know. Anybody who wants to help.
And by the way, you have to warn them about how long this was. Probably.
I did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was peeing and
I'll re-remind. I'll re-remind for anybody just joining us. This is going to be a long one. It took about an hour and a half or so, hour and 20 minutes to do this live in at Northwest Tarot Symposium.
But you did have stops to answer questions about.
But we're going to be doing that here too. Yeah. So expect an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on how chatty we are at different points of the presentation. So with that said, I'm going to dive in.
Don't be afraid to be chatty.
So I'm going to flip this so that the presentation is bigger and I'm smaller. Oh, I went away completely. Can I fix it?
Yeah. Click a different button.
There we go. Now I'm little. I wish I would show up like in the corner, but that's okay. You can still see my horn bobbing away over here. What?
The pro version lets you do that.
Oh, so basically Peggy and I need to spring for pro on StreamYard apparently. Oh, we do need to do that. We said we were gonna. We should do that.
Yeah, and then
now there's a worldwide pandemic, so maybe later.
Yeah, this happened and I had to close my shop. So
that's true. So, yeah, so for anybody that doesn't know, Peggy has temporarily closed her Etsy shop. Yes, this will absolutely still be up. I'm not going to take it down.
No hardship, we're fine.
Yeah, everything is good. Okay, so I think I'm going to flip over. Okay, so I'm going to flip over to my presentation. I wonder if I can still, no, I won't be able to see the chat. So we're going to start by just settling into the space. Again, remember that you are going to probably want something to drink or eat or something during this, but I want to start out with a really simple quote by Albert Einstein. Imagination is everything. It is the preview of life's coming attractions. And this matters because we're going to start out with a little bit of imagining. So you don't have to close your eyes for this. You don't have to go super visual, but just think about this idea. So can you imagine what your life would look like if you believed that your body is not a problem to be solved, but is perfectly imperfect and beautiful exactly as it is? And can you imagine what your life would look like if you were comfortable putting your own needs at the very top of your priority list? I love this little I am important graphic. Can you imagine what your life would be like if you understood yourself, your motivations, and why it is that you do what you do? And I love this quote by Aristotle, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. Can you imagine what your life would look like if you knew how to hold yourself accountable without beating yourself up? Be gentle with yourself. And can you imagine what your life would look like if you fully embodied your vulnerability and your authenticity every single day? And that's going to look different for different people. Oh, I have the Who Am I slide in here. Okay, you guys know who I am, but I'm going to dive in anyways because why the heck not? So my name is Lisa Pepez. I am a professional tarot reader and a lifelong tarot nerd. You guys know this because you watch me here on YouTube. Oh, look, guess what? I'm a YouTube content creator. Surprise! I'm also a body acceptance advocate. And what I mean by that is I am very passionate about topics around body acceptance, size acceptance, fat acceptance. That's a whole rabbit hole we can go down. But I'm very, very passionate about shifting society perceptions of, around a lot of this stuff. Like what size our body is doesn't dictate our health. It doesn't dictate our worth. It doesn't dictate our beauty, all of this kind of stuff. I'm very passionate about self-worth, which you guys know. And this is the most exciting part. I am the author of The Self-Worth Path, 21 Steps to Living Your Best Life. This book is done. It is past its first round of copy editing. It needs one more round of copy editing and possibly a beta read or two. And then I'm going to be moving forward with layout and putting it out for availability. So I'm hoping to get it out by summer or fall of this year. So if you guys didn't know, this has been a very long project in the works, and I finally finished it not that long ago, and I'm very blessed to have people that have come forward to help me with some of the next steps, because the writing it was the part that I was sure of kind of how to do, and everything else, not so much. So I'm going to just check in with comments really quick.
It's fine, keep going.
I'm good. Just keep cruising.
Did you remind everybody if they had a comment just to put it up, and I'll make sure you
yeah,
or things that they want to get a response from.
Bye, Essence. Yeah, no problem. Definitely watch it back later. So what is the self-worth path? Because this is the whole point of the book and of course of this presentation. So my mental image for the self-worth path is of a labyrinth. And the idea of a labyrinth is that you kind of walk this maze in and in and in until you get to the center. And that's where some really juicy stuff is. And then you start working your way back out. So my concept of the self-worth path is that it is a guided virtual labyrinth walk that brings you deeply into yourself. And in that center spot where all the juiciness is, that's where you're reminded of your innate worth. And this process brings you eventually back outwards so you can apply what you've learned to every aspect of your daily life. So as we go kind of deeper and deeper and deeper into ourselves as part of walking the self-worth path, which again, that's the process that's described in much greater detail in the book. As we move deeper and deeper and deeper, you get to this place where you're doing the really hard work. And then you slowly start to integrate that work into how you engage with other people, how you present yourself to the rest of the world, whether or not you look the world in the face, like kind of standing tall, giving yourself permission to take up space. Like these are the goals, of the self-worth path. Also, I have some delicious lemon balm tea. I know you guys really needed to know that, but I'm going to be sipping it to keep myself hydrated. Somehow this is not the same with the cute little stuffy squishable unicorn next to me that I had for my real talk. So the self-worth path takes you through 21 steps. Now, we're not going to go all through 21 steps today because there's just not enough time. But those 21 steps take place in 5 major areas of self-worth. So we're going to be looking at body acceptance, self-care, self-awareness, accountability, and integration. And so the idea is to move through those 5 areas in order to really step into your own personal power. Tarot and the self-worth path. So, I want to make it super clear. I am not like, how do I say this? Like, I'm not
You're wearing a unicorn horn.
Exactly. I'm wearing a unicorn horn. So the whole premise of the self-worth path is it's based on my own personal experience, really getting down into the grit and learning to build and...
Well, your path is for you, it's not they're not, no two paths or
no two
anything.
paths are going to be identical, but just so you know, my perspective is coming at this process from my own experience. I'm not coming at this from any sort of mental health training or wellness or anything like that. That stuff, bring in the supports you need for this, but just know that that's where I'm coming from, is my own personal experience. Where tarot comes in is that the Fool's Journey through the major arcana is essentially the map of, it's a really useful map of the practices that I work with as I'm walking the self-worth path. Seeing where the Fool's Journey and the self-worth path kind of overlap is what really buoyed my writing of the book, because it gave me sort of a framework in my mind. And the book isn't about tarot. Like, full disclosure, there's 0 tarot in the book. Maybe one mention, maybe. The book is really about self-worth, and the Fool's Journey is just an amazing sort of map for that journey. And I love how in the Tarot Major Arcana, we do work kind of deeper and deeper and deeper through more and more levels of sort of self-accountability and growth and all of that good stuff.
Caroline's daughter is on Twitch and sometimes wears a unicorn onesie and a stuffed unicorn too.
Yes, I love it.
Where the fucking unicorn hat? Like, I mean.
Yeah. Oh, Lennon. Yeah, the labyrinth is a powerful symbol.
Yes.
So it's no accident that there are 21 steps on the self-worth path, and it's kind of a fun, I think, almost Easter eggy kind of situation, because I'm going to be putting this book out there for anybody, obviously, and there's going to be a lot of people who aren't into tarot at all who will hopefully see or read or experience the book. And those of us who are into tarot, knowing that there's 21 steps, you can actually see the correlation between each major arcana and the step, which I think is really fun. And it just kind of, for me as the writer, it was super fun to layer that in there.
It made it more relatable to you too.
To me, yeah,
To
absolutely.
you specifically, but to other people as well.
Exactly. Shuffling and listening. Oh, yes, sorry. Finally, tarot is an excellent tool for tapping into your own inner wisdom. Like, just in general.
Molly just said, can I say, Lisa, that I'm so proud of you and excited for you to have your book published. Okay, now back to listening.
Thank you. So tarot is one of, for me, I've worked with tarot since I was 19. I was working with tarot before I started working on self-worth. So it was a natural tool for me to reach for as I was learning about self-worth and learning about body acceptance and learning how to make space for myself. And while I took long breaks from tarot, as I think anybody, I shouldn't say anybody, most people who worked with tarot for a very long period of time have had breaks, right? Where you're in and out of working with tarot regularly. It was still, tarot and journaling are my two sort of go-to tools for working on myself. So to me, it's like a really symbiotic relationship. That's a good word, right? Symbiotic?
Yeah, that's the right word.
Cool.
I'm gonna buy you a dictionary.
I want a thesaurus like in my brain is what I want.
The words, but you always second guess whether you.
I do. So this is just an overview. We're not diving into all this today, but this is a sneak peek. These are basically the chapter titles of the book. So if you want a little sneak peek at what is going to be in there, this is essentially it. So I'm not going to go through all of these, but this is all 21 steps in a nutshell. I'm going to keep this
21.
Make your own rules.
Yeah.
Yes. Peggy is a lot. Peggy's inspiration definitely is in and woven through this book. And it's funny because she hasn't gotten to read it yet.
Yeah, she won't let me read it.
I've been making her wait. So once we're through second round of copy editing, I'm going to give it to her to beta read. Speaking of which, if anybody does a lot of reading of nonfiction, particularly self-help sort of genre stuff, and wants to volunteer to beta read, send me an email at tarotwithlisa@gmail.com. I would love to get some feedback from people who read this genre on how it reads and how it flows before
You know what? Well,
it doesn't matter.
As long as you like how
it doesn't matter. I would love to do that. So I'm probably going to pick a couple people for that. So if you're interested, drop me a line. Okay, moving along. There are 5 major areas of self-worth.
You know what it feels like? It feels like we're like going up. That's the roller coaster. I'm just waiting to go over the top and start going. Sorry, I had to say it.
This part I didn't talk about at Newts, but I'm going to mention it briefly. We're looking at 5 major areas of self-worth. This part, obviously, I talked about. So we're going to dive layer by layer. And this is inspired by a system of looking at the spiritual body or the spiritual self, which I learned through my time in yoga and yogic philosophies. And there is a philosophy or a way of looking at the self called the koshas. And the koshas work from sort of the innermost true part of yourself, outward, layer upon layer. And there are 5. So this is a similar idea, only I work us from the outermost sort of visible layer in and in and in. Okay, so the first layer is body acceptance. So it's the very first area we dive into in the book and in the self-worth path, because for a lot of us, our self-worth journey is incredibly either hindered or helped by our relationship with our physical body. So this is where a whole bunch of stuff shows up for a lot of us. This can be our relationship with what we look like. This can be our relationship with how we feel about the ability levels of our body. So this can be, you know, you have a limp, or you have a disability, or you have chronic pain, and all these kinds of things show up, and they interfere or they impact directly the way that we relate to ourself and our body. And based on our relationship with our body, we might end up feeling ultimately very, very worthless, or we might feel very empowered. And so this is sort of the most tangible, earthy first step to take. The second area that we're going to dive into is self-care. So this is sort of how you give and receive energy. Do you overgive? Do you overtake? Do you energetically dominate the people around you? Do you most of the time, what I found is that those of us who are struggling with self-worth tend to be overgivers. We tend to be people pleasers. We tend to put everybody else first. And so self-care as a major area is about learning how to balance your needs and other people's needs, your needs, other people's wants, your wants, other people's needs, etc., and finding a really good balance. So that, because when we're not taking care of ourselves, we're not in harmony with ourselves. Does that make sense? Does that make sense, honey?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Self-awareness is that deeper level. So we work from the sort of the external body, we go into self-care. I'm going to have some more slides to flip through on this, but self-awareness is that piece where you really start to look at how you operate. What are your habits? Where do things come from? Like, do you have a certain way you react to people? How does that show up in your life? What's that from? Like, where's the root of that? So this is a lot of connecting work. It's a lot of work about noticing your relationship with change, your relationship with control, all these kinds of things. Accountability is when we take that self-awareness and we start actually holding ourselves responsible for what our lives look like right now and what changes we may need to make, what we want to improve, what we want to heal, how we want to kind of take our power back, right? A lot of times we give our power away to the situations we've had in our lives. We give our power away to other people. We give our power away to other people's perceptions, all of that kind of stuff. Accountability is about kind of pulling that power back into yourself, but with power comes responsibility. And I'm probably jumping ahead, but there you go. And finally, our last step, the last area is integration. It's where you take all of this work and healing you do in the first 4 steps, or the first 4 areas, I should say, because there's steps in each area. But once we've worked through all of those areas, integration is about how we then put all of this into action in our life. Like, how do we change our natural ways of being, our historic ways of being, our patterns, to start actually forging a new path, right? Something stronger. So we're going to dive. How are we doing so far? That's okay. And this will all be available on my channel afterward. Oh, good, Katie. Sorry, I'm a little bit behind on comments, but that's okay. So our first major area of self-worth is body acceptance. Thanks, Deb. Thanks, Jamie. So essentially, body acceptance is the practice of meeting yourself where you are. You're going to hear me say that a lot, and there's a whole chapter in the book on meeting yourself where you are. But essentially, that just means you're going to accept. You'll notice that I didn't title this body love or body like, because we're not always going to like our body. We're not always going to love our body. And I think sometimes the messaging we receive around body acceptance, or this sort of general topic, is that if you don't love your body, you must hate your body. And there's so much gray in between. We're not working towards loving our body necessarily, because it's almost like trying to strive for perfection. We're really looking at trying to accept our body. Like, can we get to a place where we can accept that this is the body we have, and then can we form a relationship with that body? Does that make sense? Like, hopefully that comes across the way I want it to. It's also about recognizing how your body physically works and noticing that without judging it, which is it's not easy to do that. But when we're looking at function and form, we're looking at, like, what are the systems in the body? Like, you know, what is nourishing us? How's the body operating to keep us alive and healthy? And recognizing that stuff and having an appreciation for that stuff, I think really helps to form a relationship with your body. And then we're also going to be looking at developing or reinforcing, if you already have, a healthy relationship with food and with eating. So the thing about food and eating, for a lot of us, and I won't say all of us, but for a lot of us, how we relate to food and how we treat ourselves around eating and what foods we choose and how we nourish our body or how we restrict or don't restrict our food, all of that stuff, I think is a mirror of how we feel about our physical body. So for me, I found that a core part of working on body acceptance is also paying attention to how you relate to food. Do you maybe emotionally eat? Do you judge yourself or beat yourself up when you eat certain types of foods? Maybe you have to restrict certain types of foods because of a health condition, but then do you feel really powerless and restricted? And like, how do you look at that stuff? So keep in mind that I'm not talking about this just from the perspective of dieting or of weight loss. We're talking about any relationship with food, good or bad. Peggy and I have had long conversations about this because Peggy has a really healthy relationship with food and she pretty much always has. So for her, she may have a healthy relationship with food, but there may be things that her relationship with food has to teach her about how she feels about the rest of her body. Did I say that right, honey?
Say it again.
Oh boy, I don't know if I can. I said you have a healthy relationship with food, but you still have things that you could potentially learn from, like how healthy your relationship with this food is. How healthy your relationship with food is can inform your relationship with yourself.
Well, like, I have a pretty healthy body acceptance all across the board,
mm-hmm.
and I have a healthy relationship with food. But if I'm having a shit day, I want a chocolate bar.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm very aware that who I am and how I'm feeling can be expressed in my choices.
Exactly. Yes.
And of course, if I'm going to sit there and eat chocolate bars for a week because I'm having a shit week, I'm going to go, oh shit, my stomach's a little bit bigger. Maybe I should stop eating chocolate bars.
But I think it's important to pay attention to your relationship with food. Some of us feel shame about the types of food we eat, even if we relatively are good at not dieting or whatever. We might find that every time we eat chocolate, we feel guilty or we feel shame. So then we eat the chocolate faster and we don't actually let ourselves enjoy it. This is an example of how you can have a fairly healthy relationship with food and still have moments where you feel like you're not supposed to enjoy something, you're not supposed to eat something. And there's a lot of today in society, we get a lot of stuff around what you should be eating, what you shouldn't be eating, and a lot of societal pressure about what's good and what's bad. Is it organic? Is it not? Is it grass-fed? All this kind of stuff.
Well, we eat 3 times a day, and we have we eat 3 times a day, and we have this massive social structure that's wrapped around food.
Exactly. I've been on for about a half hour, Kay.
It doesn't matter. I've met people who are perfectly thin and they're practically in tears because they want a chocolate bar and they feel guilty because they ate.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
It's like, what?
So next, so we're going to try a 3-card spread. Now what I'm going to do this a little bit differently than I did it in the presentation because it was a little choppy and I just want to smooth it out a bit. So I'm going to tell you what the 3-card spread is. If you want to start playing with it right away as I move on to our example spread, you can do that, or you can just follow along with the example spread. But for the example spread, we're going to work together on it. But here's the 3 positions if you want to look at your relationship with your body. So position number 1, you draw a card. What is my body trying to tell me? The second position is, what do I need to know about my relationship with food? Now, if this is an area you don't feel comfortable diving into, or you feel like you just don't want to worry about, maybe you feel really rock solid in this area, I would still encourage you to try it. But if you definitely are uncomfortable, skip it. And you could do instead, what is my relationship with movement or physical activity? Like, what is my relationship with how I physically engage with my body, right? So you could do that instead of food.
But we had that conversation. Again, it's like, I'm aware that I'm aware that my relationship with food changes depending on my moods.
Yeah.
And not that I hate or love food, the foods that I'm gravitated towards. So it's still relevant that way. It's not about dieting and losing weight.
Yeah, and for some people it may be. You might pull a card and it might warn you that it might, based on the card you pull, it might be giving you information about, oh, it looks like you tend to restrict your food. Or you might pull a card and it might be talking about how you maybe have a sense of lack around food. Maybe you feel like you don't have enough of the things you like. Or you might pull a card and it could mean
When
know,
have guilt over having too much food.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not about dieting and weight loss, which is what you
but
and
it
I
may
had
be, but it may be.
For some people,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
But there is we eat 3 times a day. Everybody has a relationship with food.
Exactly.
And for some of us, it's more vital than others.
Yeah, exactly. So
sorry, we discussed this for hours.
We did talk about this one a lot. But if you really want to skip the food question, you could ask about your relationship with movement instead. And then the third card in the spread is loving action. So you want to look at what tangible step can you take to take better care of your physical body. So you want to use the cards to sort of springboard this conversation for yourself. Now, I love to pull cards when I'm doing spreads like this. I like to pull the cards and then actually journal with them because I'm a journaler. But if you are not a writer, you might just sit with each one and meditate with them. You might think about them, whatever you might paint about them if you are a creative person in that way. Whatever helps you to really dive deep, because the point of these spreads is to be able to like dig into the depth of the questions. So give yourself time. I would say I have a bad habit, what I consider a bad habit for me personally, of rushing through my spreads and being like, oh, okay, that's what it's saying, that's what it's saying, that's what it's saying. And these really require a little bit of like tenacity and sort of sitting with it, and some patience. So let's look at some sample cards together, and I'm going to get some feedback from you guys on this. So I actually had Peggy, without knowing what the prompts were or anything, just say, okay, grab your deck and shuffle me cards and give me first 3 cards. And so we did this for each of these sample spreads. So let's look at it together. So the sample card drawn for what is my body trying to tell me is the Chariot. So I would love to get feedback from the group, like, in this context, what do you think the Chariot could be trying to tell you about your body? And let's kind of have a bit of a round table and just sort of share some meanings on how that Chariot might show up. Anybody? Peggy, hi. Did anyone else manage to miss? Which is probably most of you, since I type so slow. She does type slow. She's one of those finger pecker typers.
I'm getting better.
Yeah, you are getting better.
Like I said, finger pecker, because that can be just like...
That sounded real bad.
So
hi, Emily. So yeah, so what do you think?
The Chariot.
So Kay said, take control. Lennon said it's pulling you in different directions. And Painted Owl says movement and food. Yeah, so yeah, I like that whole pulling you in different directions. I like the idea of taking control. So if I'm thinking this is my body speaking to me.
Against our bodies.
Yeah, that's interesting too. Yeah, you need to keep moving, but take the control. Or Katie possibly feeling out of control. So control is a real theme that I think is coming through for a lot of people. I think for me, the Chariot could be needing to get moving. My body, like I see the Sphinxes kind of being stationary. And what I think is, oh, I might need to actually get moving. Like I've been too still perhaps lately. Whereas in some decks, you might see a very dynamic moving Chariot, and I might be getting the message that I need to slow down. The idea about control with the Chariot is like spot on. It could be that there's maybe you're letting your body sort of rule you instead of finding a gentle balance back and forth. Yeah, Cleo says, Peter, I like that. Food is fuel. Yes. Taking action, Mike. Yes. So you could see a real drive forward. Like if you've been ignoring something about your body, this is an interesting point. Let's say you've had pain lately and you've just been kind of ignoring it and kind of it'll sort itself out. This might be your body saying, no, you need to actually be an active participant in improving this situation. Maybe you need to do some stretches or some physical movement to improve that part of the body, or maybe you need to seek the help of a physical therapist or check in with a doctor. That's taking your power back in that situation. Peggy says, considering where you are and are not in control of your body and your needs. Yes, I love that. Katie, I pulled the 4 of Cups for this. Ooh, that's interesting. Molly, your body is your vessel or vehicle, yeah. Which isn't your essence, but it's important to keep your vehicle tuned up and in the best shape. Oh, that's so good. I love that.
I just pulled 4 of Cups for that one.
Yeah, so if you guys have thoughts on the 4 of Cups, too, we got 4 of Cups in the middle. Or Chariot, you have all the tools you need to move forward. Yes, light of subconscious mind, be straightforward, use food as fuel, not for emotional eating. There's so many ways we can look at every single card in each position, right? These are good. These are so good. I love the food as a vehicle thing because we hear that a lot. Like it's important to take care of your skin suit, right? Because we're more than a skin suit, but yeah. Oops. Nope. I want to go on to the next card here. So 4 of Cups in I can't see this slide myself.
Drink wine.
Is that what somebody said? Drink wine for the 4 of Cups?
I was kidding.
I don't care. That's awesome. I love it. Okay, sorry. So I can't read the prompt. What is this thing about? What do I need to know about my relationship with food? Okay. So skin suit dead.
Katie got the 4 of Cups as her first card. She thinks it means she's feeling mad about her body.
Yeah, the 4 of Cups can be a very discontent feeling. It could be telling you that you're kind of, and also there's an avoidance aspect to the 4 of Cups. So you might be avoiding like dealing with what your body's trying to tell you, right? You might not be listening very well. But yeah, 4 of Cups in relationship to food, I totally get it. Yes, bored with it in a menu rut. Maybe you've been not enjoying food lately and you're just eating the same stuff over and over again because you think it's what you're supposed to eat or whatever, for whatever reason, and you need to shake things up to make food more enjoyable and pleasurable again.
Oh my God, we've been doing so much cooking this week.
Yeah, yeah. Steve's home from the restaurant because of all the things. And oh, Molly, 4 of Cups, feeling full and knowing when enough is enough. Oh, that's good. Yes. Avoiding what you need. Yeah, like, okay, a good example. I start to notice I've done a lot of work around my relationship with food personally. And I've noticed now if I eat too much junk, for example, in a row, hi, Dustin. If I eat too much junk in a row, then after a few days, I'm literally craving like fresh vegetables. I'm craving fruit or juice. I'm obviously craving vitamins that are what I need. And if I'm listening, then I'll insert that stuff into my diet, right? Katie, 4 of Cups, like, no, I don't want to eat my vegetables. Yes. So spot on. Light of subconscious mind, good changes are possible. Just accept those changes and accept that you deserve good things. Yeah, Kay, try to find new foods that will still be healthy but tastier. And sometimes, you guys, this is about like stubbornness. If you're very set in your ways, if you're like, no, I always eat this way, I always eat at these times, the 3 of Cups is interesting in the front because that could be breakfast, lunch, dinner time. And you might not be giving yourself permission to have snacks when you get hungry in between meals. Or maybe you're
3 of Cups, it's 4 of Cups.
There's 3 cups in front of him, so I'm referring to.
In front, yeah.
So this 4th cup could be like, dude, you're hungry, have a snack, right? So that's cool. I love all the perspectives on this stuff. And then the 5 of Pentacles as what tangible step should I take to take better care of my physical body? What do you guys think the 5 of Pentacles could be I said that weird. 5 of Pentacles could be telling us about what actual step should we take to take better care of our physical body? Yeah, Kate, maybe the 4th cup is temptation. Could be. Katie, I volunteer to eat everyone's veggies. Yes, Katie, 4 of Cups. I'm too tired to make these changes, although I know I need to and will feel better. Ask for help. Interesting. So 5 of Pentacles, Katie says, go for a walk. Yeah, absolutely. Walking can be a great way to just feel your body moving in a really gentle way and just notice your breath. One of the things I find really helpful when it comes to building a relationship with your body is actually noticing what your body feels like when it does stuff. Like, and celebrating it, like enjoying it. What does it feel like when you're moving your legs and you're walking? What does swimming feel like? What does just sitting and taking deep breaths feel like? For me, I actually, the seed to learning how to accept and enjoy my body was yoga, because I started to love how a muscle felt when it stretched, or to really notice when I felt physically aligned in a posture, or to notice what it felt like when my whole body melted in Shavasana. But it was an opportunity to like experience paying attention to what my body felt like. So I went on a bit of a tangent there, but for me, really watching and looking and paying attention and being present with your body is huge. So yes, that was a response to the suggestion to go for a walk. Apparently I'm really passionate about this topic. Peggy says, I see the 3 cups. Oh, you're on the 4 of Cups. I see the 3 cups as being all the rules we think we have to follow.
Sorry,
and the 4th cup.
I was still looking at
no, that's okay.
Card.
And the 4th cup being the reality that we can and should be doing the things that make the most sense for us personally. Yes, there's a lot of dogma, like a lot of dogma around what you should be doing with your body, whether it's how you move it, what you do with it, whether or not you exercise, how you eat, what you eat. There is so much external pressure on what that's supposed to look like. There's a lot about self-trust when we're looking at body acceptance. There's a lot about self-trust. Lennon, the crutch keeps calling me to this card, not letting things become crutches or excuses. Good. I love that. And on the flip side, this came up in my talk. Somebody mentioned using a physical assistive device. Peggy has a cane. Sometimes she needs to use that. And if she lets herself be stopped from using that because of shame or worrying how people are going to look at her, that's not serving her body best. So for her, it might be a reminder to use her cane when her leg is sore and not be so slow to grab for it, right? So the Five of Pentacles with the crutch, that's something that comes up to me too. It could also be a reminder that you need to take it easy if you've been pushing yourself too hard. And then Molly said, when you need to lean on others for tasks you aren't able to do yourself. Oh my God, that's so good. Communication of your state of health. Yes. Speaking up about needing help when you need it. Like you said, leaning into others. I think that's a really good message for the Five of Pentacles. Lisa says the sun. Oh, is that what you pulled for this position? For the third position was the sun? Oh man, I'd be all about joy. I mean, what is the sun? It's usually like a kid playing on the back of a horse. What do you love to physically do? What brings you joy? Not what's going to burn calories or what's going to freaking build muscle or whatever, but what brings you joy? That's what I would do if I was looking at that card. So when you're looking at the cards you guys are drawing, and maybe just if you haven't yet, draw your 3 cards, take a look at it. And then if anybody's having trouble interpreting their cards, oh, Emily, that's fantastic. Yeah, if you want to email me at tarotwithlisa@gmail.com. I'm not entirely sure I know what you mean. I saw sub it for you in spare time. I don't know what sub it means. But if you want a beta read, that might be what you mean. I would love to get an extra pair of eyes for sure.
This is Lisa's first book.
It's my
She doesn't know the terminology.
I don't know the terms.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you guys want to ask each other about meanings for cards, we can brainstorm a little bit together on this now. But yeah, the sun for me, I think I got distracted, but the sun for me is very much about, my keyword for the sun is about authenticity and about joy. And so for me, I'd be looking for types of movement or ways I can connect with my body that make me feel joy and light and fun. Like for a while, I got into adult hula hooping. I made my own hula hoop. I started learning how to do that. I've done horseback riding. I tried stand-up paddleboard yoga.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, I like to do what's fun. Exactly.
And if it doesn't work out as well as all the other pro people do, then fuck that, as long as you're having fun.
Yeah, that's Shayla scratching. Yes. Cleo pulled the Queen of.
Shayla have to dig the china and then.
Yeah.
Flop.
Cleo pulled the Queen of Swords. And did you pull that in the tangible action card? So Queen of Swords, this is how I helped people in the
What email?
Oh, tarotwithlisa@gmail.com. So what I do is I first ask myself, what is my personal general keyword for this card? So for Queen of Swords, it might be analysis or truth. And then I'd go, okay, well, how does that keyword associate with a tangible action I could take? Oh, maybe I need to be really honest with myself about how am I or am I not taking care of my body at the moment? Or how am I or am I not moving? Am I moving enough? Caroline's sun, also bringing things to light into perspective. Yes. Kaleidoscope cat. I pulled the Lovers for what your body's trying to tell you. Page of Cups, and then King of Cups. There were so many. It was really cool too, because if you do these exercises with us, you might find that you get a lot of repeat cards in similar positions. Super interesting. So I would say, and then we have Wheel of Fortune, Queen of Cups, Knight of Pentacles. I love all the courts, by the way, which is awesome. So again, first, to interpret your own cards, ask yourself take it out of the context of your body for a second and ask yourself what your personal keyword is. Think of just at least one keyword, maybe 2 for that card, and then apply it to the prompt. Ooh, relationship with food, 6 of Swords. Okay, I'm going to just jump into that. I would see, personally, if it was me reading that for myself and I pulled 6 of Swords based on my experiences with food, I would be looking at where I'm at in the present moment, which is I've stopped dieting. I don't do dieting anymore. I don't do food restriction. I've left all of that bullshit behind me. And so for me, the 6 of Swords would be like, oh, you are on the right track. You're leaving behind all this dogma and all this gunk that you needed to leave behind. That's how I would read that for me. For you, think of what you've left behind that was maybe difficult or tough. And then look at, because the 6 of Swords is about leaving behind conflict and then moving into calmer waters. How are you doing that? Or how could you be doing that? Kristen, my relationship with food, I got the Tower. I'm in therapy for an eating disorder and I'm getting my shit together. Oh my God, that is such a fucking powerful message. Sorry, I should be swearing, but that's such a powerful message, because the Tower is literally breaking down this construct you've built up and rebuilding. That is so freaking powerful. Courts are power cards. Yep, absolutely. And also courts can be like advisors, right? Okay, same here, Lisa, but it's my arm and shoulder. 4 surgeries have consequences on limited mobility and having to give up several sports. I want to make sure I know what card we're talking about. Dog. I'm going to do this spread tonight. Oh, I'm not entirely sure what that's in reference to as far as card wise. When we have physical limitations through birth defects, through accidents, through all these kinds of different things, a lot of times what ends up happening is that we have a real anger and resentment towards our body because we're frustrated that it's not what we want it to be. This is part of the work of body acceptance, right? It's figuring out how to navigate your relationship with your body as it is today. This is the point of meeting yourself where you are. You want to build a relationship with your body today in a loving and compassionate way. Oh, that's okay. Apparently I'm still going to soapbox on you. Yeah, you guys are pulling up some really, really juicy stuff. What did Lennon say? Somebody said that's beautiful. Oh, my aunt had polio and loved to move around her head and arms. We had so much fun. Oh, that is beautiful. So good. Yeah, Peggy says it's very easy to get so locked up over the things we can't do that we fail to recognize the things we can do. Yes, or learn to do with modifications. That is so true. Okay. Katie Hines, 6 of Swords, leaving behind, had bad anxiety and sleep issues for years. The last couple of years have been stabilizing, and now my business is pretty much set, so I can finally focus on my body. Yeah, that's beautiful. Okay, we have a lot more of these to go through. So I'm going to move us along, but please feel free to keep sharing with each other in the chat. I'm going to move on to area number 2, which is self-care. Take care of yourself. I'm going to take this off, though, because it's pinching my head, and that's not making my body very happy. I'm taking care of myself. I forget that I'm so little in the screen. That's so weird. I should just make this full screen because it's not like you need to see my face. Let's do this. That's better. Okay. We can still hear me.
And you're still seeing the chat, is that right?
I've got it kind of pulled up on the side. So if I'm moving slides quickly, I can't see it. And then, yeah.
But so unless you...
Yeah, so you should, if somebody asks a question though.
Like you're seeing stuff, and it's like, okay, I don't have to worry too much.
Yeah, so self-care is the practice of prioritizing your needs without feeling selfish so you can be your best self for your own sake and for the sake of those you love. This is where we talk about securing your own oxygen mask.
Oh, tell them what you said at Newts.
At Newts, I kept calling it.
Oh my God. You know, okay, yeah.
Hold on.
Secure your own oxygen mask. It's like you need to secure your own gas mask.
Oh my God, I kept saying, oh, I've got too many screens open. I was gonna.
The room got so loud from all the laughing. I had to come in and ask her to keep it down.
It was bad, you guys. Sorry, I had to come back on and show and just. It was bad. It was bad. It was bad. I kept saying gas mask, and nobody said anything for a bit, and then all of a sudden, somebody's like, "Don't you mean oxygen mask?" And then we all cracked up. It was hilarious. Oh my God. Okay, back to our screen here. Let me put it back on the. There we go. Okay. So the thing about self-care, so I think I'm going to give Molly the credit because I think it was Molly that first said this, and it's stuck with me ever since. It was in one of our self-worth Saturday chats. And she said, you know, self-care is when you put your own needs above other people's wants. So it's, if you are a people pleaser, if you have a tendency to put everybody else first, and if it wasn't Molly, I'm sorry. Somebody said it in a chat though, for sure. And it's, I've repeated it again and again and again. Thank you, Kay. My haircut is growing on me. Hair pun. Anyway, so the thing about self-care, this comment about, it was you. Oh, it was a meme you found. Okay, that's awesome. So that really stuck with me because it's true. If you are a people pleaser, if you have a tendency to put other people in general first, chances are you're putting their wants above your own needs. I'm really bad for this, and it causes a whole lot of ripple effect problems where you get more and more and more depleted, and lack of self-care can be as small as just doing a little, like not paying enough attention to yourself, and neglecting some of the things that you need to feel whole and healthy. And it can go all the way to the extreme where you're an absolute doormat and you literally let everybody walk all over you. So there is a huge spectrum, or is spectrum the word I'm looking for? Yes. There's a huge spectrum or scale of.
I say a scale for everything.
Yeah, Peggy says scale for everything. So learning about how you give and receive energy and effort and how you relate to other people as far as what you give versus what you take or allow yourself to take. All of this is super, super important because it will really change how you interact with other people, and you will train other people how to treat you. You train other people how to prioritize you. And if you don't prioritize you, chances are the people in your life don't think that you're needing to be prioritized either. you end up treating people or training people or even making friends with people who prefer to take instead of give. And it becomes a self-perpetuating problem where, because you're so unpracticed or maybe not as good at putting yourself first, nobody else puts you first either, and you end up more and more depleted. When I noticed in my own life that I had hit a point where I was literally everybody's doormat, I realized that when I suddenly started putting myself first, everybody around me was really unnerved by that. And you could tell because my relationship started falling apart left, right, and center. Suddenly, the people who had no problem letting me give and give and give and give and give, they were all disappearing or getting angry at me when I suddenly started saying no, or suddenly started pulling some of that energy back for myself. And for me, it resulted in really a whole overhaul of who I had in my life. Cleo said, I've realized being an overgiver means I don't have to be vulnerable because the focus is on the other person. Oh my God, yes.
Well, if you're busy helping other people, you don't have to help you.
Absolutely. And you also don't have to look at the tough stuff, right? You don't have to look at any of your shadow. You don't have to do any of that. Your focus is on other people. You don't have to pay any attention to yourself. And truth be told, the moment you start paying attention to yourself, as we'll see in the next section, you start to recognize you got some work to do, right? We all have work to do. We all have things we need to be working on. Oh, that's okay, Terry. Yep, what happened to me? When you have boundaries, suddenly people drop away. Absolutely. Katie says, thank you for this definition. Just had this conversation with a client contemplating leaving a long-term toxic marriage. You cannot make someone else happy. It's their choice. Yes. And also, I really, really believe that when you build a relationship based on the idea that you're going to do all of the giving, and then you suddenly pull that energy back, people are going to resent that. They're not going to understand. And to some degree, that's to be expected. Because when you form a relationship on the premise that you're going to do it all, when you suddenly stop doing it all, the other person's left feeling bewildered and like they don't quite fully get it, right? So some people will be able to make that change with you and some people won't. And that is unfortunate, but it does happen. Oh, that's okay, Emily. This is a long one. Yeah. So definitely you guys drop out whenever you need to. You can always come back and watch at your leisure. It's going to be long. It's going to be on my channel. You can come back to it whenever you want. So let's move on now to our self-care spread and really look at this. So the first card is going to be, which of your needs are you currently neglecting? And the second one is, what is the biggest barrier or obstacle to your self-care at this moment? And the third one is, what tangible steps should I take to prioritize myself? Excuse me. Before we go on to the spread, quick definitions of self-care. Self-care is anything you do to take care of yourself. So this can be basic everyday stuff like getting up, taking a shower, getting enough sleep, drinking, making sure you're hydrating, making sure you're eating when you're hungry. Basic human needs. And it can go all the way up to making sure that you have enough quiet time if you're an introvert, or enough social time if you're an extrovert. It can be about making sure you feel nurtured by yourself. And this is important because we can feel nurtured by other people, but if you're not making any time to nurture yourself, you're missing the boat, right? You're missing some of the critical work that we need to do. Yes, Katie said, I said, imagine what would happen if you took 10% of that energy back to yourself. What would that look like? And imagination, the reason I start these talks with, like, can you imagine what your life would look like if, is because if we imagine what's possible, it can become easier to move in that general direction if we can actually create an opportunity to look at that, right? So let's take a look at the spread. So let's look at this one together, just like we did in the last one. So we're looking at is that the 9? Yeah, that's the 9 of Wands. So what could the 9 of Wands be telling us about what need we're currently neglecting? Let's brainstorm a little bit in the chat and see what could come up with that one. Oh my God, for a second I thought Shayla was snoring. I was like, is that Shayla snoring? No, it's just Steve in the other room. Just like this low, man rumble, really low. Balance. What do you mean, Kay? You're neglecting balance, like you're out of balance? Is that what you mean? Kay says self-care is such a huge part of our lives. Oh, I see what you're saying. It helps keep all of our selves stay balanced. Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, for sure. Waiting for help, leaning in, not good. Katie says boundaries, too rigid or not strong enough. Yes, I'm going to put this back to nope. Yeah, it's fine. I'm gonna keep it like this for a minute so I can actually feel like I'm talking to you guys. Yeah, so when we're looking at, maybe I'll make it a little bigger. I can't handle it. Okay, there we go. So with the Nine of Wands, we think about like protecting ourselves. That's one of the ways I look at this card, right? When you think about protecting yourself, as far as what are you neglecting, you might not be protecting yourself enough. So yeah, Katie, boundaries totally make sense. Your boundaries might be either too rigid or not strong enough. Boundaries are such a huge part of self-care in general. Cleo also, I thought boundaries maybe not letting people in. Yeah, exactly. Ooh, Lennon, your passions are behind you. So can you expand on that as far as like, oh, like you're saying like you're not putting your attention on your passions? Is that what you mean? Yeah, Kay's making a sandwich and bringing us with her. That's how we like to do these lives. Oh, I hear Peggy typing. She's probably got something. There we go. I'm neglecting new and better routine because—
my God, if I could spell, that would really help.
Wait, neglecting new and better routine because fear of unknown things. That's what Light of Subconscious Mind says. Yes, I love that. Jamie Kelly, 9 of Wands. Oh, you got 9 of Wands in the 3rd position. Oh, that's interesting. Peggy says, I think we all neglect some areas of self-care. It's nearly impossible to be 100% self-care unless you're a literal hermit with no one else to consider in your life. Yeah, I mean,
well, I think that's what the 9 means for me. It's an awareness that, okay, like we're married couples, so there are days where your self-care takes precedence over mine in some area.
Yeah, there's like a give and take to.
So it's being aware. So I think the 9 of Wands here says, don't let don't let caring for other people, like there may be areas where you have to make concessions, but be aware that you deserve self-care too.
Yeah, Lennon says like bogged down with day-to-day and not doing what you love. Yes. And Peggy's point, like the 9 of Wands guy, he's been a little beaten up. He's all bandaged, right? So if you've been giving and giving and giving and you let yourself get that depleted, then what happens is that then when you need to do some self-care, you're playing catch up and you have to do a lot just to get yourself back to neutral. My partner says that too. Share self-care. Yes.
Yeah.
Kaleidoscope Cat got the 10 of Wands for the first one, and I've been basically ignoring how exhausted I've been feeling the last few weeks and pushing myself. Yes, exactly. So let's look at the 10 of Cups and what is the biggest barrier to my self-care at the moment. So the biggest barrier to self-care, what would 10 of Cups mean in that position? Like if we're looking at how does 10 of Cups, which we see as a very optimistic card, how is that a barrier to your self-care? I think this is a really cool one to dive into. So I'm curious what you guys have to say about it. I will share my thoughts too. I just want to give you guys a second to take it in because I've done this before. Katie got 5 of Cups, neglecting and self-care. I don't have time to feel bummed out. Yeah, Abundance Tarot, putting others first. Yeah, so in the 10 of Cups, you mean? Yeah, it could be like focusing on focusing on other people, focusing on the family, focusing on your partner, your relationship. A lot of times our sense of self-worth can be tied up in the tangible actions we do for other people. When we really struggle to see the worth in who we are, then we can tend to want to do tangible actions to prove that we're worthy. And I think that's one of the areas that can become a slippery slope. Lennon, thinking everything is good and right when you need to not let your thinking everything is good and right when you need to not let your practice go. Yeah, like complacency, right? The 10 of Cups can very much be about complacency. Everything is fine. I don't have to pay attention to anything. Molly, if I can't do X perfectly, I can't do it at all. Ooh, is what I'm getting. It doesn't have to be all rainbows and sunshine in order to be done. Perfect is not done, right? Or done is not perfect. Done, not perfect.
It doesn't have to be perfect. Just get it done.
Yeah, that's how I had to get to that place with my book.
Perfect.
I did that. I stopped writing for a long time because I was like,
function over form.
Yeah, function over form. Terry says can't be among family and friends. Oh, Kaleidoscope Cat, the perfect is the enemy of the good. Caroline, you're only taking care of your family and not your own needs. Perfectionism. I love the perfectionist correlation here because the 10 of Cups is almost a obnoxiously perfect picture, and it can be a little bit of a disconnection with reality when we see the 10 of Cups in a tarot reading, right? Lennon, sometimes I can't get through a yoga routine and it's difficult not to feel guilty. One of the things I do when I'm trying to maintain
don't ask Lisa about yoga.
One of the things about yoga I will say is when I'm trying to have a practice, I always stop with I'm going to commit to rolling out my mat and doing a shavasana, just laying on it for 5 minutes. Because if I don't do something like that, I don't get on the mat. And I haven't been getting on the mat lately. So that's something I'm working towards. I got the shadow work card in the Moonchild deck. Oi, all or nothing thinking. That as far as the 10 of Cups, yeah, that totally makes sense to me. Molly, it's a hard card for me because of the idealism. Yeah, the idealism is actually really tricky. Yeah, I'm a certified teacher trainer. I've done workshops with yoga teachers on teaching people with different body shapes and sizes and ability levels, and I've done body image talks and
you're an anatomy
workshops.
geek. There are high-end yoga teachers based on your physical anatomy and bone structure. There's certain things that you will never be able to do in yoga.
It's true. The Stepford Wives syndrome. Yeah, there are actual poses that not everybody should be doing, like for absolute certainty. Okay, so let's look at the third position. What tangible action should I take, or what tangible steps should I take to prioritize myself? So our Knight of Wands is a really wonderful action card here. So what tangible action is the Knight of Wands maybe telling us to take in order to prioritize ourselves? Oh, Peggy's in there bragging about me.
My God, yeah.
I want to go to the Lisa Yoga School. Oh boy. Oh, Peggy's gonna have a heyday with this one. So what do we think the Knight of Wands is telling us to do? What do we need to do to prioritize ourselves if we've pulled the Knight of Wands? And then we'll start looking at each other's cards some more too. Oh, we're only on section 2 and we've been on for an hour. My biggest barrier is that I'm single and without support. I wish and need. I just cannot find strength enough. Yeah. When you're feeling lack of support, when you're feeling that lack of connection, that can feel like a barrier. And then the follow-up question I would ask myself in that position would be, how can I take some power back in this situation? How can I pull power back into my own life? Yes, I did. Cleo, pursue our own passions for the Knight of Wands.
You're just gonna ignore me now.
I am now.
You're getting pink.
You're making me blush. Stop.
You're making me blush.
Yes, move joyfully, Kaleidoscope Cat. I love that. I also think it's interesting that the Knight of Wands doesn't give a crap what anyone thinks about him. He's very, excuse me, I'm burping now. He's very like flamboyant with his dress. He's very like all in. He's not worried about what people think about him. And that's that's interesting when it comes to self-care, because how would we treat ourselves? What would we do for ourselves if we weren't worried about what other people would think about that? I think that's an interesting question the Knight of Wands could be asking us. Lennon, moving forward in your practice, but at your own pace. You don't have to be go, go, go all the time. Absolutely. Yeah, exactly, Katie. You can move the skin. You can lift your belly and forward folds. Oh, I've got them coming out my ears. You ever need some tips on body and yoga? Just, yeah. Peggy, I see that as a fucking card too. What works for you and F what other people think. I need to not swear as much on this channel. It's hard in lives. Yeah. Good job, babe. Do what works for you. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, the Knight of Wands doesn't give a crap what other people think. He's doing his own thing. I love that. And when we're talking about self-care, I think that's a really powerful message. So I'm curious what some of you guys got, if you feel like sharing or you want to bounce things off of each other for what you pulled in different positions. Throw it in and let's chat about it for a second, and then we'll move on to the next one.
I need more coffee, and that would be really bad. I'm already hyper today.
Jamie got the Page of Cups for which of my needs am I neglecting? Oh my God, Cleo, I love it.
Yeah. I was just gonna say the same thing.
And
That's
then
right, Cleo.
So Page of Cups to me is kind of the dreamer and the mystic and the hopeful optimist. So what need are you neglecting? Could it be being able to see the positivity in a situation? Have you been sinking into pessimism of like, oh, why bother? It's not worth it. Nobody cares. I don't care. So complacency, that sort of thing to me would be maybe what the Page of Cups could be pointing out. What was that second card?
They've got Princess of Swords, Ten of Swords, Queen of Wands. It sounds like you've been your own worst enemy.
I literally just poured. Can you give me like a towel? I literally just splashed tea all over myself. Apparently, and it's just out of view of the camera, but I literally just poured stuff on me.
It's okay, but your puppy's upset because I disturbed her.
Jamie got the Chariot for your barrier to self-care. So
it's gonna take a minute.
It might need to be damp because now I'm sticky. And okay, so the Chariot for what is the biggest barrier to my self-care at the moment? So I might see a lack of focus, trying to go in too many directions at once. Maybe you're being pulled in 2 different directions. And tangible step as the 9 of Wands, I would say possibly let your guard down, find some vulnerability, rest, maybe ask for help. If you're kind of feeling like you're doing it all alone, you're the only one guarding that. Oh, you did dampen it. Thank you.
Yeah.
I literally just splashed tea on myself.
Yeah, your life will end until
I'm behind on the chat already. Caroline says abundance in the abundance, the star in the second position, hoping too much, not being realistic, like wishing upon a star, but also need to put it into action. Yes. Kaleidoscope Cat got 10 of wands, the moon, and 4 of wands. Oh, I see. Caroline was responding to abundance. Got it. Okay, so 10 of wands for what are you currently neglecting? And 10 of wands is like caring too much, right? So you might be neglecting, just caring too much, straight up, like just trying to do too much.
I just subconscious mind, maybe I should just go to the writing school. It's like, damn, if that's what you're into, do it.
Hell yeah. The moon, as oh god, I'm like getting strings stuck in my. Oh
no. That can be rinsed to clean.
I got it. No, there was a string stuck in my pendant. Okay, so the moon for obstacles is where is fear stopping you? That's the first question I would ask. 4 of wands, Cat, as tangible action, to me speaks to what successes could you be celebrating? Like where could you be finding room for celebration, for appreciating milestones you've reached? Have you been making time to really take it in? Because sometimes where we're lacking self-care is we're go, but we're not pausing to actually celebrate our accomplishments or celebrate the work we have completed. We're not giving ourselves time to soak that in. And there's a bunch more in chat, but I'm gonna Cleo got 2 of cups to the barrier to self-worth. So to me, I might look at who am I prioritizing above myself? Because I see 2 of cups as relationships, right? So what relationship in my life is actually depleting or preventing me from finding that self-care? Am I putting too much effort into this other person or this child or this friend or this partner? Yeah, so good. Somewhere I made the sandwich, you made me pour a glass of wine. Nice.
Blame Lisa, it's fine.
Who,
I blame her for everything too.
No, blaming Caroline, not me.
Oh.
Yeah.
You're not being blamed?
Not this time.
I'm not sure how to cope with that.
Okay, we need to move on to major area number 3. I told you guys this was gonna be a long one. Self-awareness. So I love this image of the brain with all these like connecting dots, because this whole section is about connecting dots. It's about recognizing patterns or habits of patterns of behavior or habits. Those are kind of the same thing. It just depends on how you want to look at it.
Ouch. Yeah. Kaleidoscope Cat says my birthday on Monday, and that's the day I'm starting my new job at a hospital. But with all the coronavirus stuff going on, my family hasn't really done a ton to celebrate it.
Yeah.
That's stressful.
That is stressful.
I mean, well, just even talking about what's going on out in the world right now is
stressful. Yeah.
So
self-awareness. Yeah. We're looking at connecting the dots between things we do, habitual ways of behaving, how we treat ourselves, all of this kind of stuff. And we're looking for the root of that stuff. Like, where did it come from? So it's really about examining and looking at your personal patterns or your habits or your reactions and just learning where they come from and getting really nerdy about yourself, like getting really nerdy about, why do I do blah? Why do I do that? And then you kind of dig into your past, right? You look at your past experiences and you're like, oh, I bet I learned blah to do blah, right? So like, for example, I have a tendency when I'm in my shadow to be very controlling. Like I have to really shut up. I'm gonna murder you. Anyways, I have a tendency to be controlling, right? So when I'm freaked, shush. Holy, I'm gonna like do bad things to her. Okay, so anyway, we're not gonna beat up Lisa. That's not what we're doing. You love your wife, yes. But because that's my tendency, I've learned to go, okay, well, why? Why do I do that? And it's like, oh, well, I was raised in an environment where I had literally no control, and often the rug was pulled out from under my feet like all the time. So when I'm stressed or when I'm in my shadow, I look for routine. I look for control. I look for things I can rely on that are going to stay the same, because change was a very disempowering experience growing up. It was something, so I'm able to look at my past and go, this is where that came from. And then I'm able to go, okay, now that I understand where that comes from, I can remind myself that I'm not in that situation today. So I can bring everything back into the present. Why do I do blah? Because I'm lazy. Oh man, I feel you on that one. And happy birthday, Kaleidoscope. Sorry, I was distracted with chat.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
How long did it take you to write your book again? 2 years?
I'm gonna beat your face with your face.
Valid. Okay, I'm being an asshole.
It is valid. It is
right?
valid. Yes.
it's like every time there was a reason to respond to tension, you would stop writing.
Absolutely.
And then recognizing that you were doing that as a response to tension, I'm using tension generically.
But still, yes.
And you self-sabotaged for significant chunks of it
Yeah.
because of other things going on in your life. It's like, well, I can't do that. This is all fucked up right now, so I'm not going to work on this because I'll just fuck it up. And you would
True.
just,
Anyway, okay, so Molly says, I always call it self-auditing or self-inventory, taking stock of your beliefs, habits, and thought processes in order to reconcile everything with each other and with your values and goals.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So our 3-card positions are going to be, number 1, what behavioral pattern or what habit, whatever wording you want to use here, most needs my attention. So this first card is the what am I going to look at today card. It's going to be what, because you can't look at everything all at once or you will overwhelm yourself. I mean, you can, but it's not a good idea. So the card is there to prompt you of what is the thing I need to look at. So that's going to frame what the reading is going to be about. So the first question, what behavioral pattern needs my attention? Most needs my attention. So it's supposed to bring your awareness to the thing that needs your attention first, basically. And then the second prompt is about connecting something from your past experiences, relationships, situations, to that pattern so that you can understand it better. Okay, well, this is the pattern or habit I'm doing. What's that from? Like, where did I learn that? Where was that modeled? Where was I exposed to that? Where did I learn that this was effective or worked well or was a good idea? Like, and this is about doing this without any self-judgment. You're just being curious about yourself. And then the third position is loving action again. What tangible steps? So remember, we want to focus on things we can do, not just kind of sit and think about, right? So what tangible steps should I take to deepen my understanding of this habit? So, for example, let's say I draw 3 cards and the first card prompts me to think about my habit for control. And the second habit prompts me to think about what experiences are from my past or connected. And maybe it's not what I think. Maybe it's not about having the rug pulled out from under me as a kid. Maybe the card I pull is the devil, and what it has more to do with is the people in my life who've had chemical dependencies that I've had to deal with. And then the loving action card, what tangible steps should I take to deepen my understanding? Maybe what I get is the Page of Swords, who is our sort of detective. He's the one that kind of likes to figure things out. So maybe the action step is to journal and to start really writing about my experiences with people in my life who've had chemical dependencies. How did that impact my need for control? Was it because I couldn't fix that for them? Is this related to codependency? There's so many interesting deep dives you can do if you really sit with the cards. So let's look at our example spread and then we can look at some things together.
Well, didn't you mention that this one was more about using the cards as focuses for meditation? Didn't you mention? I thought you mentioned it at some point that was one thing that you kind of recommended with this particular spread. Or am I getting?
I don't know what you're. Yeah, I'm not sure. Any of these.
Okay. No.
That was just an example because we want the third card position to be about something we can do, whether that's I need to go meditate every day for a week or whatever, or I need to journal, or I need to do whatever. Yeah. Caroline, can't wait for the book. Oh, good. Yeah, it's easier when you can like skip ahead. This is what I was saying. If anybody feels brave and wants to help me with, if anybody does rewatch this later and feels like putting timestamps in the comment of the video, that would be so magical and amazing and appreciated. I'm sure other people would appreciate that too, just to each spread maybe. Okay, so here we have the 6 of Cups as what behavioral pattern most needs my attention. So you don't have to share about your own lives, but like generically, what could the 6 of Cups be as far as representing a pattern? What pattern could it be trying to bring to our attention? Let's kind of discuss as a group and come up with some ideas that could be talking about. Also, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me because this is really fun to do at Northwest Tarot Symposium, but there were a lot of people that couldn't go. There was a lot of people that really wanted that. It's just not realistic, right? For travel or whatever. Well, and it's really fun to be able to have this on the channel for like future.
There was a lot of people who didn't go to Newts because of coronavirus.
Of all the stuff starting. That's right. Lennon says something ingrained from childhood. Yeah, that would be a great springboard. Any kind of childhood stuff. And in this case, because we have this action of giving, yes, Kaleidoscope Cat said it, too much giving to others. That might be what it would make me personally think of. Susie says this card is complicated. Yeah, it absolutely is. Katie, being open to receiving. Yes. There's something interesting here too. We don't really know in this card, at least visually, we don't really know, is the older child giving the younger child the plant, or is the younger child giving the older child the plant? Has he or she just taken it? And I think that's really interesting because we can look at the behavioral pattern of this is a good example from my own life. I have a lot of shadow around people that I perceive as being in a place of authority. So I might automatically give my power away to somebody who is older than me, or who seems like they have a degree in something, or who I feel like has some sort of expertise. I might just go, oh, they must be right then, because they have this expertise, or they have this age benefit over me. And so for me, this could speak to that shadow aspect of giving my power away to anybody I perceive in a position of authority. Am I doing that? Am I giving my power away? So that's one example that I would personally relate to. What is parentification? Is this like kind of putting other people in your life in the position of parenting? Molly, the programming we can receive as children to how we should treat others. Yes, that is so good. Katie, taking on roles that should not be yours. Ooh, Lennon pulled this for tangible action. Well, it would depend contextually on what you pulled for the first two cards. So we should look at that when we've gone through the samples, because that might be really interesting.
Taking on roles that should not be yours.
Yeah, I think that's really, really good.
What Katie was referring to.
Yep. Abundance, oh, you're welcome, and says, don't trust too much on how things used to be. Things change. Yes, sometimes, because we look at the Six of Cups as a nostalgia card, looking at the past. Sometimes we have a habit. This is a good example that I think a lot of us can relate to at different parts in our lives. Sometimes we have this lens of a past relationship, for example, and we look at our current partner through that lens, good or bad. So if you had a really good relationship, you might compare in a not so awesome way your current partner to this like positive image you have of an ex. Or you might do the opposite. Maybe your ex has always cheated on you, so you're constantly suspicious your current partner is going to cheat on you. That is a way where we can have the past, or our attachment to the past, can negatively impact our present. Yeah, Katie, a child taking on roles and responsibilities of the adult. Light of subconscious mind, teaching others too much but not learning by ourselves enough. Yeah, that's really good. Sometimes we rely too much on being the student, and we don't ever give ourselves the opportunity to really step into our own knowledge, our own power.
Oh, no, that was something you definitely had to deal with.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, always waiting, always wanting to be taught, like always looking for the next source of study, as opposed to really trusting your own knowledge.
Well, and you had the background of, no matter how full of shit they were, you were expected to fall in line and believe it. Like,
oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Katie, sorry if I get too therapy. It's what I do during the week. That's totally fine. Yeah, that's totally fine. We appreciate it. Kay, need to learn to accept help as well as to give it. Okay, so now that we've identified a behavioral pattern, being your own guru, armchair practitioner.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so let's look at the middle position. Now this is about, I can't see it again because my screen. What experience or experiences?
Melissa, Katie, it's perfect for this chat.
Yeah, it's true. What experience or experiences from my past are connected to this pattern? So if we assume that, let's say the 6 is about taking on roles that we shouldn't necessarily take on, right? Then what does the 2 of Swords tell us about, and we don't even have to use that example, but what does the 2 of Swords tell us about what past experience might be connected to your pattern? Susie the Gemini says, 2 of Swords for me is a heavy weight, balancing and blindfolded. Yes, being indecisive. So maybe you had an experience in your life where you literally didn't move forward, you didn't make a decision, and that had an impact on this pattern. Always trying to keep the peace. Abundance, afraid to make choices if you're not sure of the outcome, of all the outcome. Yeah, sorry, I'm going to just move this. Yeah, I think that's really good. There's a lot the 2 of Swords can tell us about dealing with emotional turbulence, because there's the water behind her, and the movement of the water behind her being emotional turbulence, or one of the representations of emotional turbulence, right? And then we have this idea of trying to find clarity, but at the same time, the heart is blocked. So that can tell us something too, right? There's a guardedness to the 2 of Swords. It's really, really blocked. Peggy says, I see the 2 of Swords as being forced into choices that cut you no matter what you choose. Yeah, like which side of your neck's going to get the cut, right? That's a really, really interesting perspective. And if you were put in a position that you were forced into choices where you couldn't win for losing, like you couldn't win either way, then that's going to have an impact on how you make decisions in the future, right? Ooh, Molly, I'm getting a learned helplessness vibe from the 2 of Swords. We wait for permission from others in order to act. That is so damn good. And it's good too, because we get this feeling of a lack of power, of feeling stuck. And the blindfold is definitely a representation of not having a lot, or feeling like you don't have a lot of power. Can be a representation of that. Absolutely. There's no easy choice, Katie says. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really good. That's really good. So let's look at the third position and then we'll look at each other's cards for a minute or two. So we have the King of Cups. In what tangible steps should I take to deepen my understanding? And we have the King of Cups. So what could the King of Cups be advising us to do? What is his advice to us on what we can do to better understand our pattern? So we've made this connection now between the pattern that we're being asked to look at, the behavior we're being asked to look at, and where it might have come from in the past. So that's the first two card positions, right? So we've now created this connection. Now that we have the connection, what can we do to deepen our understanding? And understanding here isn't about just intellectualizing or mentally understanding what's happening to you or what your pattern is. Understanding is also about how can I have more compassion towards myself, which of course the King of Cups would be good at teaching us about, I would think. So when we say understanding, we mean there's a certain degree of, I want to use the word acceptance carefully because we may choose to work on this pattern. So we don't want to do acceptance as in complacency. We want to look at acceptance and understanding as in better integrating this knowledge so that we can leverage it in the future. Caroline says, Two of Swords, having to make a decision that is very close to your heart and torn between choices. Yeah. Oh, my comments are actually kind of synced. Oh, yeah. Peggy and Molly having the back and forth. That forces you into always accommodating the needs of others while ignoring your own. And Molly says, yes, and feeling stuck in a waiting pattern, never allowed to make decisions for oneself. Lennon says, learning how both the hard choices from the previous card make you feel. Susie's stumped. Are we stumped on the King of Cups? Abundance. Don't react overly emotional. Try to master it. Yeah, I could see that too. If our tangible advice or a tangible step from the King of Cups. So cups, when it comes to better understanding the first two things, it kind of depends on your set of three cards, right? But let's assume that the Six of Cups pattern was about, you've noticed that you tend to give your power away to other people quickly. And we've identified in the Two of Swords that that's because choices were taken away from you. You always had to wait for somebody else to make decisions for you. So if we use those two examples for the first two card positions, the King of Cups might be about how can you lovingly take your power back? How can you really compassionately not give your power away to other people quite so easily? How can you use the emotional intelligence, the emotional wisdom of the King of Cups to help you stand in your power, right? So these are the kinds of jumping off points that I might go to, because I see the King of Cups as somebody who is a loving leader or a loving guide. So I would be wanting to apply that loving leadership to myself. How can I be my own authority so that I don't give my power away so easily? That might be one of the ways I would put that into play. Lennon says, finally, let your emotions drive you to stand in your own. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So does anybody want to share about any cards they got? And we can kind of like go back and forth with each other a little bit about that. Okay, this spread so speaks to me. I'll need to do this one with a lot of thoughtfulness and time to myself. Yeah, it's hard to do this in such a fast-paced
well, this is
setting.
The idea across.
Yeah. And remind me, honey, to put the PDF up in the Facebook group.
Put the PDF up in the Facebook group.
Remind me after the live chat. So let's see. Kat has Queen of Swords, Page of Wands, and Three of Cups. Deb has Hierophant, Five of Pentacles, Ace of Wands. Ooh, Hierophant's juicy there. Ooh, Lennon's got two major arcana, Moon, World, and Six of Cups. Katie has 10 of Pentacles, Chariot, 10 of Swords. And Cleo has 6 of Swords, 10 of Wands, and 8 of Swords. Okay, so I'm going to start with Deb this time because I don't think I did her last time. So I don't think I did her at all. That sounded really bad. Okay, so
That's really dirty.
I made it sound really dirty. I know, it's terrible.
Well, you did by pausing.
I know. Okay, so let's look at the Hierophant for what pattern is coming forward. So Hierophant is one of my deep shadow work cards. For that very reason that I mentioned the Six of Cups could be, because to me, the Hierophant is about my relationship with anybody in a dogmatic power situation. So this could be church leaders, obviously, but it could also be government leaders. This could also be bosses. This could be anybody who's in an official role to basically tell you what to do and how you respond to that energy. So if I was looking at my own patterns, I'd be looking with the Hierophant, I'd be looking at what of those power relationships is out of balance. Yeah, there you go. There you go, Deb. So let's say that's the pattern coming forward. And then the second card that came up was the Five of Pentacles. So I'd be looking at what time in your past did you feel, and this is really powerful when we look at, I'm getting goosebumps, when you look at the Hierophant as a religious leader, literally, and you look at the Five of Pentacles where somebody's literally not in the church and they're outside feeling alone and lonely, I would literally be making a connection between the way that that made you feel or how that could have made you feel. This might be getting way too personal. So I, just generally, if I was looking at those two cards in a literal sense, I'd be looking at, wow, like, how has that made you feel like an outsider? How have you felt not accepted by that system or by that environment, and how that could play into your relationship with that powerful person that was in a position. There's a lot of words popping into my head with those two cards, but yeah, that's pretty powerful combo. And when we look at the third card, which is about tangible action, we have the Ace of Wands. Man, is that ever about being in your own power? Holy crap. The Ace of Wands is that like surge of personal power. That's about literally, I'm going to use a sword reference, so I'm sorry if it's confusing, but think about like the Sword of Avalon and Excalibur and this idea that you're given this power to just lift and take back. To me, the tangible action would be very much about stepping into your power. And there's a whole bunch of other cool stuff happening in the chat too, but yeah, that's a lot. Let's see, what other combos do we have? So Lennon, Moon, World, and Six of Cups. So Moon as the pattern. So anything around fear. It could also be about deep dives into subconscious. It could be about relationship with our own wild nature. When we think about the moon card and the dog and the wolf, we have this conversation happening between the characters on the card about domesticated versus wild. And that could be something to look at in that card as far as what pattern it's bringing forward. The world is interesting because there's so much cohesiveness and completion in the world. And we're like, well, what experience, what world experience, what completion moment have you had in your life where things kind of finished or a milestone was met that could have fed into that maybe disconnect from your wild nature, as an example. And then Six of Cups being tangible action could be about reconnecting with something more innocent, more pure. I don't know. I'm literally just off the cuff babbling. Lennon, I've been studying my wild self lately. Have you read Women Who Run with the Wolves? If not, that's really good for that study. It's so good. Kay got all majors. Oh, High Priestess, Wheel of the Year, and Temperance. Oof. So High Priestess, as far as what patterns coming forward to me would be about being very closed off, perhaps keeping secrets, feeling a need to keep information close to the chest. A million times, and the Holy Wild. I've got the Holy Wild behind me. I haven't read it yet, but it's literally on my to be read book list. Yeah, Women Who I'm still working my way through it. I'm only about 2/3 of the way through that book. It's so good. So please feel free to keep chit-chatting with each other about what the cards can mean. Yeah, King of Cups to be more compassionate in my decision making, says Caroline. There's so much good stuff in this chat, you guys. This is so good. If Women Rose Rooted, I've heard is very, very good. Oh, I have to sneeze. Am I going to sneeze?
Oh, extra bird. Oof.
Nope. Now I'm determined.
Think of a cow. Think of a cow. Think of a cow.
Thanks. Okay. Next. Accountability. Yay! This is where it can get really tough, guys. So full disclosure, this is where we dive into this is where we dive into the darkness, but that sounds really intimidating. So I was trying to find a gentler way to put it, but
this is where you need to look at your own asshole moments.
Yeah. Accountability.
Lennon says, oh shit.
Yeah, exactly. So accountability is the practice of taking responsibility for your unhealthy or unhelpful habits or your behavior or your patterns, the stuff that we were looking at in the last section. Now it's time to take responsibility for that stuff. So this whole section is based on something that Peggy said to me a long time ago. It may not be your fault, but it is your problem. So it doesn't matter. This is going to sound really callous for a second, but come with me on the journey. It doesn't matter what you've endured in your past, what you've experienced.
Yeah, Melissa, this is the part where a lot of people nope out of there.
Yeah. Here's the thing. No matter what's happened to you, no matter what you've been through, no matter where those patterns are connected to real difficult experiences in your past, at the end of the day, whether or not that those things that happened to you are your fault, it is your problem to deal with right now. Like, it's affecting your life because you've identified that this memory or this experience you have is connected to this pattern that you need to be looking at. So accountability is where you go, okay, I'm now going to take responsibility for the fact that this is what I'm doing today. Yes, here's where I learned it. That's important information to inform this practice, right? It's important to know where things come from. But the next step is to go, well, I understand it a little bit better now because that's what we did in step 3 or in area 3, right? Now our job is to take that information and put it to work by taking responsibility and doing what's necessary. Okay. So this is based on my approach to shadow work, essentially. So the 3 main things I want to talk about, which aren't going to come up in this spread, but I have put this spread up on the channel before, is observe, own, and create conscious change. So I don't know how to hold my fingers. There's 3 spread positions. Observe. So that's kind of what we did in the last step, right? Get to know what pattern it is you want to look at. Own is about taking responsibility. Okay, well, I understand that pattern. Here's what I need to do to take responsibility for it. I need to recognize it's mine to deal with. It is on your plate right now. So you get to deal with what you're going to do next. And the 3rd step, create conscious change, is about how are you going to change it? What are you going to do differently? And we're going to talk about that. But Katie, this is right up the alley of acceptance and commitment therapy. Yes, this happened. How do I move forward? I need to go on a training of it. I wish I could send you some ice cream. I wish you could send me some ice cream too. So let's look at our 3-card spread to dig into accountability specifically. So we're looking at the own step. First.
Last time we did that, didn't everybody end up having popcorn? Remember we started talking about popcorn?
Oh yeah, we talked about popcorn in the chat.
By the time the chat was over, like everybody was craving popcorn and everybody went, and we had like 20 pictures of people eating popcorn.
We have a soda stream, so we can have floats. Oh. Okay, anyway, so first card position. What do I need to know about the habit I want to break or the pattern of behavior I want to change? You can use any wording you want here as long as it makes sense to you. What do you need to know about, what extra information do you now need about this pattern or this habit? Now, I personally like taking the pattern that came up in the last spread and using that pattern as my reference for this spread. So now we know what the pattern is, right? We've identified it in the last set of 3 cards. So now we're going to take that same pattern and we're going to ask from the first card position, we're asking, okay, now what do I need to know about this habit that I'm in today, this pattern that I'm in today? And the second card, I'm trying to hit the slide forward when I'm not on the right screen. The second one is, how can I take responsibility for it? What do I need to do to really take it on as mine to deal with? Because this is where stuff shows up, where we have a tendency to give our power away to the past, to like kind of exist in victimhood and to cling to the idea that we feel powerless. So this card, this step is about taking responsibility, like really taking it on and going, okay, now it's on my plate. I don't get to just slide the peas off the plate under the table to the doggo. Like, I got to deal with my peas. What am I going to do? Like, how am I going to take responsibility? And the third is, now this is where we create conscious change. Okay, I've taken responsibility. I now understand this habit or this pattern as best as I can. Now, what different thing, what healthy, new, different, better thing can I do instead? Because when we're creating change, and there's a whole bunch of diving deep in this in the book, when we're creating change, in my experience, the easiest way, the most successful way to create lasting conscious change is, instead of just trying to stop doing the thing, you need to not only stop doing the thing, but every time you catch yourself doing the thing, you need to start doing something different to replace the thing you were doing before. It's kind of like any habit, right? If you want to stop the old habit, you're going to always fall back into the rut of that old habit if you don't build a new rut, a better rut, a healthier rut. So this is what this is about. This third card position is about, what new rut, healthy, good rut, can I dig? What new habit can I build to replace this other habit? So, oh, thank you, Molly. So in order to do this as a group, let's come up with, as a group, let's pick a habit someone might want to break, or a pattern of behavior somebody might want to change as an example. So we can use that example when we're talking about our sample cards. So assuming that we used our last spread to identify a pattern, what's a one we'll all easily understand, like a basic habit?
But not one like smoking or stuff like that, right? Or is that
you could do smoking if you wanted to. I'm just curious what the group can come up with.
Somebody says vaping.
Oh, I'm behind on the chat. Vaping?
Yeah.
Susie says vaping. Oh no, do I have another sneeze coming? I can't tell. I said another, but I never sneezed the first time.
Think of a cow, think of a cow, think of a cow.
Moo. I don't know why that works.
Probably because it just gets so freaking embarrassing at that point. It's like,
It just
oh my God,
distracts
that's
you.
embarrassing. I need to not sneeze.
It's all about getting into different ruts. Should be the self-help tagline. Sugar,
Ignoring your own feelings in
apologizing.
favor
Ooh,
of helping others. Ooh,
I'm gonna do
apologize.
apologizing because that's fun. And last time we
fun.
did something really tangible. Doing NH your actions. Doing NH your actions.
NH.
Cut. Oh, doing your actions. Cut NH. I'm gonna talk about apologizing. That's the one that's sticking in my head. Okay, so we're gonna use apologizing as our example. So let's say we apologize a lot, and we apologize when we don't need to be. Oh, doubting your actions. I'm with you now. Yes. So we're gonna use apologizing as a way of like, okay, so we apologize too much. We constantly are apologizing for stuff we probably have no reason to apologize for. We tend to take on responsibility for stuff that's not our responsibility. So this idea of apologizing too much. So let's look at our sample spread.
I don't have to say sorry to you anymore.
You don't say sorry, period. Do you really want to go there?
No.
I didn't think so.
I don't think we're gonna go there.
No, maybe not.
We're good. I'm amazingly good all of a sudden. It's fine.
Okay, so our 3 cards. So we got King of Cups for what do I need to know about the habit I want to break? So in the context of this apologizing and apologizing for simply existing, exactly. So in the context of this pattern of apologizing for just normal stuff you shouldn't be necessarily having to apologize for, what does the King of Cups tell us about what do we need to know about this habit? What could he be advising us? What could he mean as far as what we need to know about apologizing? And let's assume that we were able to already do the math, make the connections and figure out that in the past, maybe we were as a child constantly made to apologize for things that weren't our fault. Let's assume we've already done that work in the prior step. Okay. So King of Cups.
I see the King of Cups. It's like you already know. You're already on step 4. You already know what you need to be working on. That's kind of what I see. That.
Okay, so the King of Cups is like, girl, you already know the work you got to do. That's one way to look at it for sure.
That's how I see it personally.
Yeah. Anybody else? Susie, too obliging. So you mean the King of Cups is letting you know that you're being too obliging? Is that what you mean?
2 of Swords energy, cigarettes or cracked lips.
Oh boy.
Oh, Carolyn told me that when she was smoking, she decided to eat salted sunflower seeds to keep her hands busy, but her lips were cracking off from the salt.
Oh my God. Use lip balm. I don't know if that would help.
Sunflower seed now.
So I think King of Cups, when we're talking about apologizing, so again, I see King of Cups as the loving, nurturing guide personality, somebody who's got a lot of emotional wisdom. Okay, so there it is for me. I just found it. So for me, if I was having the habit of apologizing a lot, the King of Cups would be reminding me that I already know, and this kind of plays into Peggy's meaning, I already know how to determine when I really should be sorry and when I don't need to be sorry. I have the literal knowledge already about when I should be apologizing and when I shouldn't be. So I need to look at, so what I need to know about that habit is how I can be discerning in the moment, use the knowledge I already have to decide, okay, is this a moment when I should be apologizing or is this a moment when I should be holding my ground? Because we always talk about food.
Food is our best example.
It is. So that's how I would do it. Does anybody else have any other insight from the King of Cups and what he could mean about this habit of apologizing? What could he be trying to tell us? Emotional authenticity is required for this work. Admitting to oneself about our fears relating to feeling sorry for existing. Yes, exactly. So good. Hi, Claire. Okay, so then we look at the Page of Wands. I'm just going to move on because I know we've already been on like an hour and 40 minutes. So the Page of Wands,
how can you're doing fine.
I'm doing good.
You warned everybody it was going to be a long one.
I did. So Page of Wands is how can I take responsibility? So if the habit is to always be apologizing for existing, as an example, and the King of Cups is saying, okay, we really need to lean into emotional authenticity. We need to know our boundaries and when we really should be and shouldn't be. Then what is the Page of Wands telling us about how we can take responsibility for that habit? So I start to dig into what are my keywords for the Page of Wands? And the Page of Wands to me is somebody who sees the magic, who sees the wonder, who is adventurous, interested in exploring, tends to, so using those keywords, and I'm kind of thinking as I'm talking, how does that sense of adventure help me to, I just had to unfold my legs. How does that sense of adventure help me to take responsibility for apologizing too much? speak up. As in, this is what
That's
the
what the
Page of
card- yeah,
Wands.
that's the Page
Yeah.
of
No,
Wands.
that's okay. I know what you mean. Yeah. So Page of Wands could be being you need to actually own your truth, right? Maybe you need to be. I am live to Maya, right? Yep, totally live at this moment. Yeah, speak up for yourself. So Page of Wands, he's holding on to his personal power. We see the wands are a symbol of power, yes, of courage. So this is telling you to take hold of that power and that courage. And maybe also, if I look at for me personally, if I look at the Page of Wands as somebody who's willing to experiment, to take chances on things, then that tells me that part of the reason perhaps I haven't been willing to not do this tendency to apologize is that maybe I'm afraid of other people's reactions and I'm trying to control an outcome. Well, if I apologize, I know it will go a particular way. If I don't apologize and I instead stand up for myself, I can't be quite as certain of the outcome. So there's fear there. If I instead step into a place of being willing to experiment and take chances, because the Page of Wands is a chance taker, right? He's got a passion for life.
I was gonna say Caroline said.
Yeah. Take hold of your power. Don't worry how other people react to it. Exactly. That's kind of what I'm saying. So for me, the Page of Wands might be like, okay, I need to actually take some more risks, because if I don't, I'm always going to keep apologizing. So my responsibility in this is that I need to start acting with a little more trust in the people in my life, or find people I can trust if that's a problem, right? So that's one of the places you could go with that. I love this. This is so great. I could do this all damn day. Okay, so third card position is what new helpful habit can I practice to replace the old unhelpful habit? So we've recognized that the issue is apologizing for existing, just being sorry for just being in other people's way, whether or not you're doing anything wrong. And the Page of Wands says we need to take chances, take risks. I'm sorry, Tomaya, but this will be up after if you want to dive back in. So and the Page of Wands is telling us we need to take chances. So then what's the new habit we can do instead of apologizing? What can we replace apologizing with? What could we do instead? What could the Four of Swords be telling us? Lennon, sleep like the dead. That's literal. We could go there. Katie says, from Moonchild book, lessons and experiences may repeat over time and take longer to sink in. Is that what the Moonchild book had to say about the Four of Swords? I'm curious because that's really cool. I like that. Molly, taking a moment to think before one acts instead of mindlessly following old habits. So the Four of Swords could literally be about taking a time out before you immediately react to a conflict or a situation where you might feel the need to immediately say you're sorry. Give yourself a second, a minute or longer to take stock of what's happening, to let it sink in. I love that. I love that so much. Yes, contemplate and give yourself time to make the changes.
You know what? Because people like to go, okay, I'm going to stop doing this, so I'm going to start doing that, and they want to snap their fingers and just.
Sometimes you need to give yourself breathing space.
It's not going to work perfectly, and it might take you time to find the thing that best replaces or empowers you.
Page of Wands. Oh, that's cool, Katie. Susie says RWS solitude. Yeah, it might be about getting some space. Maybe the next time you have, say, a conflict with somebody, before you jump to apologizing or groveling. I used to be bad for this. Immediate groveling. I still do that sometimes. Yeah. And so
now it's fun when I'm the one being
okay, but
sometimes that works in my favor and I'm amazingly okay with it.
To think before you, I'm sorry, everyone and everything. Yeah, I know what you mean. Lennon. So sometimes what you need to do maybe is literally say, I'm not going to fix this right now. I'm going to walk away. I'm going to give myself space and solitude to sort out how I feel. And then if you go back with an apology, you're coming at it from a genuine place, not from a reactionary.
Knowing it's deserved,
yes.
Instead of you're just falling on your sword to make them happy.
Exactly. If you ultimately decide an apology is the appropriate action, but you've taken time to think about that, you're not reinforcing that reactionary behavior, right?
Sometimes, okay, like apologizing, blah, 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 blah. This taking response, sometimes you're still going to have to be the one to apologize and take responsibility, because regardless of, but you need to find healthier ways to do it.
Yes,
so the
totally.
Four of Swords is telling you to take the time and the contemplation to make sure that when you do it, it's for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And that you're not just doing it as your default response to everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Katie says, making the change, not worrying about how it impacts others, taking a step back.
Yeah.
Yes. And Lennon says, and know that if you go within, you'll find a solution, not just the excuse of I'm sorry. That's really powerful because apologies are easy.
About shutting the fuck up.
I'm about to flip off my wife. Hold on. Okay.
It's not
Anyway.
it's not very effective if you're not going to share it with the internet.
Molly, with apologizing for having to say no or replying to a request, it can be about giving yourself time to think things through. If you say no,
Using wise mind.
no is a complete sentence. We've talked about this on Self Worth Saturday before. You're allowed to simply just say no. Period and stop. You don't need to explain it. You don't need to justify it. And you absolutely do not need to apologize for it. And we could all do
And
more.
can we just add, even if you're wrong?
Yes, even if you're wrong. Yeah.
Because if you are wrong
about saying no,
well, if you say
say no, that's your decision to say no.
If I say, hey, can you give me $10? And you go, no. And I go, oh, okay. And I say, just so you're aware, it's because I need to go buy some groceries so we can make dinner tonight. And you go, oh, okay, my bad. I didn't realize it was important. You can still be wrong and not have to kill yourself, beat yourself up over this shit for days.
Yeah, that's true. Katie, using wise mind and DBT, accept your emotions about it, but continue to stick with it. Yes. Molly, Four of Swords is the canceling plans to stay at home and rest card. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Okay, so let's move on. If you guys want to share some of your own draws for this spread with each other and bounce back and forth a bit, I am going to move on. So we go on to section 5. But definitely feel free to help each other out with some of the polls that you've had.
Is your throat getting sore from 2 hours of talking?
Oh, I'm a talker. I'm a talker. It's the I'm all done and crawling into bed.
Exactly. And you're allowed to be all done. It's like, I'll talk to you about this in the morning.
Social distancing word. Old habits die hard for sure. Oh, that's okay. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next one, but just keep in mind that like this is also a deep one, and it gets at this stage we've gotten pretty personal, so people may not want to share as much with each other, which is completely fine. This is where it gets this stuff is where it tends to get intense.
Even in your talk, a little, not as many people shared this one.
Yeah. So our next section is integration. Knowledge is of no value unless you put it into practice. If you've learned something and then you do nothing with that knowledge, then it's not valuable to you anymore, right? So integration is about how you take what you've learned through this process of diving deeper and deeper into yourself, and then you're figuring out how to change the way you relate to the world and to other people. So as I just said, the slide is just saying it now. So vulnerability, authenticity, self-trust, facing your fears, establishing and holding boundaries, and standing in your personal power. These are all examples of integration. These are like us putting into practice what the cards have been giving us advice to do for the last 4 steps, right? This is when we actually start doing the things. We start changing the way we relate to other people because we're coming at our relationships, our interactions, and our behaviors from a place of believing that we're worthy exactly as we are. And so this step comes after lots and lots of work in the other 4 areas, right? So in the book, by the time we get here, we've done a lot of nitty gritty work in each of these sections, and these spreads give you an idea of what kind of work we're doing. But now in integration, it's like, okay, this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where you decide you are going to start saying no. You are going to stop apologizing. Except in cases where it makes sense, right? You are going to put down the crutches. You are going to take responsibility. You are going to step into a place of personal power and step away from victimhood. Integration is where we take all of that amazing work and we start applying it day to day. And this is also where you remember that it's not like you just progressively get better at this necessarily. Okay. It's literally a practice, which means that every single time you do it, you're going to make it a little easier for yourself. But that doesn't mean you're going to every single time do it better. You're going to be like better, better, better. Oh, I just really sucked at it today. A little bit better. Oh, I sucked again. A little better, a little better. It's a 2 steps forward, 1 step back, sometimes 2 steps forward, 3 steps back kind of process. And so when we're thinking about how to apply our worth day to day, we're really thinking about how can we be gentle with ourselves? How can we practice self-compassion? How can we lovingly appreciate that when shit goes down in the world, hello, let's look at our current situation. All of my shadows have been coming out to play. Am I right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, and said, healing is not linear.
That's absolutely right. Absolutely right.
And that's a big step, though. You have to accept that.
Yeah, you have to
accept that as part of your process,
yeah.
Or you're just going to set yourself up for, for these stratospheric highs and
big lows,
subterranean lows. It's going to get crazy.
I started this practice with body acceptance, and what I learned is that there were days when not dieting was easy, not restricting my food was easy, and then there were days it was really effing hard. There were days when I found myself stuffing down a Big Mac and not enjoying it because I felt shame about the Big Mac, right? So there are days when it's tough, and then there's days when it's easier. And all of these different areas we're looking at, whether it be body acceptance or focusing on self-care and balancing our needs with other people's, or when we're looking at our patterns of behavior and our habits of speaking about ourselves or to other people, if it's about like how we respond in times of stress, all of this stuff is stuff that you work on, and there is no destination. The reason it's a labyrinth is because we have to keep taking the trip. We have to keep going in and spiraling back out and going in and spiraling back out. We have to keep doing the work. So some days you might be on step 3 of the 21 steps of self-worth, and some days you might be on step 17, and sometimes you're on step 7, and you're going to bounce around. But you're building a foundation of like getting better and better at learning how to stand in your personal power. Give yourself permission to look the world in the face. Give yourself permission to take up space physically and energetically. And you're sort of giving yourself an opportunity to expand and to build a new pattern and build a new habit. I mean, if you think about it, whatever age you are in this moment, unless you've completely mastered self-worth, and I know I haven't, you've got, for me, I've got 42. Am I 42 or 43? I forget every time. I'm 42. Okay, so I've got 42 years of, or really, I guess I've got 38 years, 35 years.
Now.
Yeah, no, July.
Be 43 in July.
Okay. Okay.
Oh my God.
So I've got
calculator.
I've got decades of reinforcing my lack of self-worth, and only in the past, I would say, well, we've been married for 14 years. 13 years.
13 and a half years.
13 and a half years. Okay, so I've been working on
in July 1977.
I started
Anybody who has a calculator.
I started doing conscious self-worth work when I was 28. So those are the years I spent building the habit of feeling unworthy. And so now I'm trying to build the habit of feeling worthy, and this is a lot of math. 12 years, 12, 13, 14 years into the practice of trying to build worth. And I'm telling you right now, it's still a constant work. It's never, I don't know if it'll ever be easy breezy. There are days it's easy, and then there's days it's tough. I'm seriously like, I that was a lot of numbers. I'm sorry, guys. Cleo says we're like onions. Yeah, we keep peeling back layers, right? And the interesting thing about this is I heard an analogy about this that where it's kind of like a spiral staircase, right? You keep circling back past the same stuff over and over again. But the idea is that with constant personal work and integration and owning and all this kind of stuff, every time you circle back to the same pattern, you've got a slightly different perspective as you keep getting better and better at it. Yeah, Peggy's old folk. She's my old folk. Okay, so let's move on to the integration spread. So 3 cards to dive into this. We're looking at a couple core areas of integration because these are the things that I find actively practicing helps us to integrate our sense of self-worth. So number 1, where in my life is more vulnerability needed? Now, for me, vulnerability is a core value. It's something that allows me to express my worth to the rest of the world. If I feel worthy, then I also feel like I'm allowed to be vulnerable. When I don't feel worthy, I put all that protective shell on myself, right? Because I don't want to be seen. I don't want to be that exposed. So vulnerability to me is a way to practice self-worth. So where in my life is more vulnerability needed is the first card in the 3-card spread for integration. The second is about courage and strength. Because for me, again, I want to feel soft and squishy and vulnerable because to me that means I'm expressing my worth. But another way to express my worth is in being fierce. Where in my life is more ferocity needed? Where do I need to more powerfully or courageously express my boundaries? Where do I need to set limits? Where do I need to say enough? Where do I need to say no? Where is more ferocity needed is the second card position. And the third one, which is obviously very broad, is what tangible action should I take to ensure that I'm living in alignment with my worth? So this is about what possibly am I, so we've looked at where more vulnerability is needed, and we've looked at where more strength, ferocity, courage is needed. And now we need to look at, okay, now what action step do I need to take to be more in alignment with my worth? And remember, we're operating on the assumption throughout the entire self-worth path that we are worthy. That is a fact. That is a fact. Everything is about connecting to that sense of worth,
Teaching you to
believing,
believe it.
teaching you to
Understand
believe
that
it.
it's true.
Absolutely. Go feed your kitty, Kay. Lennon, yes, and the resurrection stone can be about changing and transforming yourself. Yes, absolutely. Okay, so here's our sample spread. So let's do this one as a group. What could this, I almost said 7. What could the 5 of Swords teach us about where we need to be more vulnerable? Where in our life is more vulnerability needed? The 5 of Swords, what is that telling us? My tea is completely gone. Sad face. I'm also filming some tarot memoirs videos today. Woot woot. Finally getting that wrapped up. You're an official AARP member at 51? No, really?
Ooh.
That's so strange to me. Do we even have AARP in Canada?
We have an equivalent, I forget. We may even have an AARP directly up here with a Canadian chapter, I forget.
Yeah. Yes, your worth exists no matter how other people are abusing, misusing, exploiting, ignoring, etc. Your worth is inherent. Your worth as a human being is inherent. An empowering thing somebody told me once, you are no more or less valuable, no more or less worthy or valuable than any other singular human being on the planet. No one person is more worthy than any other person. It legitimately does not matter. Oh my God. Deb just said they will find you, and I started cracking up. I was just like, they will. It sounds very ominous. Oh my God. Okay, so sorry.
I don't think they do that here because I don't remember getting anything.
Reeling it back in. 5 of Swords. Where in my life is more vulnerability needed? What could the 5 of Swords be telling us about vulnerability and where we need to be more vulnerable? I don't want to throw mine out until anybody else has had a chance to.
You know what, 5 of Swords, except where it's about conflict and whatnot, I never know I never know how to interpret that one.
So you've won, but at what cost?
Okay. So don't be so hung up on winning that you.
It could be the opposite. So to me, I would look at this and go, I would see myself as the defeated, and I would go, maybe I need to be more vulnerable in admitting when people have hurt my feelings, when I feel they've taken advantage of me. Sometimes you need to be more vulnerable in admitting when other people have hurt you. As I've talked about recently on my channel, sometimes you spend so much time trying to protect the people that have hurt you that you forget to be vulnerable about the fact that you were hurt. So that's how that would show up for me, perhaps, right?
So basically letting the people in your life that are fucking you up, let you know that they're fucking you up.
Be vulnerable and admit when they've hurt your feelings. Yeah, when they've hurt you, when they've taken advantage of you.
Well, because you can't make choices as to what you're going to do. I mean, sometimes you're going to tell those people, hey, this is how you're screwing me over. And they might go, I don't give a shit if that screws you over. And then you know exactly where you stand.
And sometimes you might not confront that person in a vulnerable way. It might not be safe or feel safe to be vulnerable with that person. Sometimes you'll be expressing that vulnerability by admitting it to somebody else, right? Susie, they laid down their swords. They gave up in a way, right? So you could say vulnerability is about recognizing that maybe it's about being softer and how do I say this? I know what I'm thinking, but I'm having a hard time expressing it. Lennon, could it be the person letting go of toxic relationships, being vulnerable with yourself about who's not serving you? Yeah. And also vulnerability is also about letting ourselves feel things, right? Sometimes vulnerability is about letting yourself not feel okay when you don't feel okay. Vulnerability can be about admitting when you feel ashamed or afraid, when you feel like you're struggling. Yes, Deb, it can also be attacking first before you get hurt. If you're being invulnerable, you have sometimes people protect themselves by aggressive action, right? Sometimes we're aggressive because if we push away, this is a great way this shows up. Sometimes we might push somebody away because we're convinced they're going to leave us. And so we're expressing our lack of vulnerability by pushing people away. Good night, abundance. Yeah, it's pretty late where you are. And the clock is going forward. Lame.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Sometimes it's about hanging on to somebody in spite of knowing that that's somebody that you should be walking away from.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because
exactly.
the conflict of the 5 of Swords does usually result in
some sort of disconnect.
Endings.
Yeah, absolutely. Oops. And then the 5 of Wands is asking us, where in my life is more ferocity needed? So we have the 5 of Wands. what could that be telling us about where we need to be stronger, have more courage, have more fierceness, be in our power more? What could the Five of Wands be telling us about where we need to do that or how we need to do that? Where in my life is more ferocity needed? Doop, doop, doop.
Yeah.
I keep reaching for more tea, even though I know it's empty. There's a little bit.
I think reaching that stage where you're finally.
Yeah, there's a lot of conflict in this spread for sure.
You know what though? That's something that you faced. Once you finally reach that point where it's like, I know what I need to do and I need to start practicing it in my life. A lot of the toxic shitbags that were in your life couldn't fucking cope, and it became a series of conflicts.
I was talking about that earlier. Yeah, that's absolutely how it went. Because you're changing the rules for people, right? So for me,
well, and so many of those people just couldn't accept the rules had changed because then they were losing all of the benefits they got from the old you.
That's 1000% true. That's 1000% true. For me, actually, and this came up during my talk at Newts, I think, competition is one of those areas where if you feel unworthy in general, when competition comes up, even healthy, okay competition comes up, we pull away because we don't want to compete. We don't think we're going to win, so why bother, right? And this can come up, like there's healthy ways where competition matters, right? For example, applying for a job and actually feeling like you're worth it enough to make the application instead of assuming you wouldn't get picked, so don't bother. So to me, the Five of Wands in where is more courage, ferocity, personal power needed could be about, hey, I can hold my own. Because if we think of this in terms of, say, a sport as opposed to a fight, because to me, the swords is more fight and the wands is more competition. If we think of it as like a actual, let's assume for a moment, it's a healthy competition where you can actually get involved. Yeah, like Molly said, jumping into the fray instead of standing on the sidelines. Yes. If you believe in yourself, you'll apply for that job, even against somebody who you think, oh, they'll for sure get it. Owning your power and being more courageous and ferocious means going, maybe they will get it, but I deserve to go for this. I have the skills. I know I have what it takes. I'm going to apply for it too. And letting that be possible. Because what I used to do is shrink away, and I still do this. I have to really consciously look at it all the time. But I'll pull away. As soon as there's any kind of competition, it's like, oh, they must be better at it than me, so I'll just step back.
Or they really want this, so I should let them have it.
Yeah. Absolutely, I do that.
Something that just bit you in the ass not too long ago.
That's very true. Yeah, that's very true.
A hyper-competitive person who couldn't stand losing to the point where they, and it's like.
Yeah, and I would pull away, right? Instead of stepping in and standing in my power.
Your job was to let them win and cheerlead them while they did it, even when they were losing.
Yeah. So lifting weights at the gym, pushing yourself to do things you always felt intimidated to do. Five of Swords is being involved in a mental or verbal battle and being left feeling empty inside because no one comes out the winner, winning at all costs. Yes, agreed. Whereas Five of Wands, sometimes one of the cards, I think it might even be the Bone Stone Tarot. I can't remember, but somebody designed this card where it was kids racing up a tree. It might be in the, actually that might be in the Tarot of the Hidden Realm. I'm trying to think. Fake it till you make it is actually, Peggy and I actually have disagreements about this sometimes because I believe in the concept of fake it till you make it to get yourself into the fray, to get used to standing in your power. But at a certain point, you need to believe in you need to make that transition into authenticity, right? If you want to be lasting in that thing that you're like jumping into, right? In a healthy way. So the next card is the Devil. What tangible action should I take to ensure that I'm living in alignment with my worth? Yeah. Excuse me. Molly, it can also relate to standing up, speaking out for self and others. Taking action requires vulnerability and openness. Yep. And I really actually love the term ferocious or fierce vulnerability because I think that you can have vulnerability and ferocity in the same place at the same time. You can be very bold and courageous while being vulnerable. And sometimes that's the most powerful actions of self-worth is when you embrace both of these and you use them, you work with them together. Yeah, when you have the degree after your name and you own your knowledge. Exactly. Yeah, be in your power.
Yeah, it's like so fake it till you get comfortable, but don't fake it.
Oh, I was responding to somebody else. Sorry.
I have some huge, I know too many fakes that just.
No, I know. So what about the Devil, guys? How do we think the Devil applies to what tangible action should I take to ensure I'm living in alignment with my work? Ooh, standing up for one's individualism, not kowtowing to so-called authority. Yeah, there's a bit of rebellious energy in the devil for sure.
Yeah.
And I always notice the chains in the devil. That's one of the things. Yep, Lennon just said it. Take off the chains. That's one of the things I immediately go to with my eyes whenever I look at any devil card. Is I look for the chains because I always look for, or the cage or whatever.
And you know what? In a
And
lot of the
I always,
devil-
oh, sorry, real quick. I always look for the ways that you can already escape. Like you're not as locked up as you think. And I'm sorry, what were you gonna say, honey?
in a lot of the devil cards, what I see, especially the more old school cards, if you look really close at those chains, they're just looped over like a necklace and can just lift
Yep,
them right off.
That's what I was saying.
They're not tight. The chains aren't tight.
Yeah, it's your
like
choice
somebody
to
just
remove
went on
them.
and slipped it on like a necklace, and
Yeah.
it's like they come off.
Yep, I love the Lightseer's Devil puppet strings. Yep. And there's also a really good one in the Robin Wood Tarot where you see two people who are naked. Each one is holding, they're not even chained, they're each holding one end of a treasure chest and they're pulling it in opposite directions. They're literally trapping each other because they're in their shadow and their greed and they're not looking at the situation from a holistic place, right? Mine is more like, Katie, you're being insecure, but you have lots of experience. Get over it. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Not having others pull strings in my life is a tangible action. Yeah, making your own choices, being in your power. And it's kind of brilliant when you think about it. If we replace what tangible action should I take to ensure I'm living in alignment with my worth with what tangible action should I take to be in my power, the devil becomes very clear. Don't let other people rule you and don't let your shadow rule you. Take ownership of the stuff you want to change about yourself. Be in your power by taking responsibility for what is your responsibility. But the flip side of that is not taking responsibility for what is not your responsibility. If something belongs to somebody else, if it's their stuff, let it be their stuff. Let them be a grown-up. Let them sort out their own stuff. It's not your job to fix it. It's not your job to take it on for them or to help them or heal them. And I think a lot of us who struggle with self-worth also struggle with things like codependency, wanting to be the fixer, the healer, etc. And I think that the devil is a reminder that, whoa, we need to pull it back. We need to take care of ourselves and what is in our purview, what is in our authority to change, and that's ourselves, right? Molly, I find that the solution to the problem of the devil is found in itself. Giving away your power then takes Satan or Lucifer or Pan's ability to come into one's own power. That's a beautiful thing because there's a lot of lessons in those archetypes, right? When we look at Satan, Lucifer, Pan, have you guys watched the Netflix show Lucifer? It's outstanding. It's outstanding. Watch it. It's so good. Molly, original critical thinker. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to move on so we can wrap this up because we're going to finish with a little wrap up. So this is your checkup spread. So now if you've been working through all of these steps, and again, this is a really useful accompaniment to my book when it comes out, I'm just saying. But if you're doing all these steps, if you've been working with the other 5 spreads, this spread is kind of like a little check-in, right? So it's a way to just sort of do a quick little, how am I doing in these different areas of self-worth? Kind of, it's literally a checkup. That's what it's meant to be. So this really is meant for that. Oh, my little slide thingy came up. Okay. So this is to look at the big picture of your self-worth. So instead of deep diving into body acceptance and self-care and all this kind of stuff, it's about looking at like an overview of each of these areas. So it's 5 cards, 1 for each section. Body acceptance. What does my body need most right now? It's just a quick check-in. Self-care. How can I prioritize myself better? And really think about this in the present moment, like today. This would be a great daily spread. What does my body need? How can I prioritize myself better? What habit needs my attention today? Where do I need to take responsibility today? Right? How can I improve my engagement with others? So when we're looking at where do I need to take responsibility, habits, and prioritizing ourselves in body, those are about you. But integration is about how your stuff is going to impact other people. So how can you improve the way you're going to engage with everybody else today? What can you focus on to make that better today? Because that's where you take all the work on you and you apply it to how you engage with other people. Whew. So that's basically it in a nutshell. Yeah, the spreads really evolve over time. Yeah, they really, really do. And journaling with these, especially, I like to use the self-care checkup spread semi-regularly. Like, okay, it's great as a daily type spread. Like, you know, we have, there's a really popular 3-card daily spread, Mind, Body, Spirit. This is kind of like that with a couple extra cards. Okay, so you're looking at relationship with your body, right? With the body one. Self-care is about your relationship with your energy, really. Accountability, like, oh my God, my brain. I'm gonna actually go back on the slide because I can't. Okay. Yeah. So body acceptance is your body. Self-care is your energy. Self-awareness is sort of your mind, right? Your mind and emotions. Accountability is sort of your wisdom. Where do you take, where do you take responsibility? And integration is other people, right? How you're relating to other people. I think, this work in this presentation is the foundation of the work I've done in the book. Okay, bye, Deb. And it really gives you an opportunity to check in with yourself. And if you do these check-ins fairly regularly, then if you pull a card where you're like, oh my God, my relationship with my body really needs a deeper dive, then you could follow up with a 3-card spread to look at a particular area. It's like you do this on a daily, let's say. I'm not saying you should do this every day, but you could. Let's say you're doing this on a random Wednesday and you pull cards and everything looks like it's trucking along pretty good, but then you get to self-awareness and you get like the tower and you're like, oh shit, I need to do some work here. Then maybe you go to that 3-card spread about self-awareness and you dive a little deeper. And then maybe you springboard off of that. I mean, you can use readings in a layered way where you do a reading and then you add a reading and then you maybe ask yourself questions and you shuffle as you're asking yourself, okay, well, what about this am I supposed to be paying attention to? And you pull a card and then you sit with that. And you can really take these to any depth that you want. And I think that that's really, really important. I love this. And the day came when everything that made her feel worthless became the story of how she found her worth. Tanya Marcool is absolutely one of my favorite inspirations on the internet. She's Thug Unicorn on Facebook and Instagram. Tanya Marcool, she posts tons of inspiring stuff. I often share her stuff to the Support of Tarot Facebook group. I've written for her blog before, or her website before, and she is the author of the She Book. She's coming out with She Book 2. I think that the publisher is sending me an advance copy, so when I get that, I will share it with you guys. But I love her stuff. Check her out for sure. My book is coming out summer, fall, as I've already mentioned a bazillion times. You guys already know how to get a hold of me, but the links are here. And I will put this presentation without all the, it'll be less pretty because it won't have all the pictures and quotes and stuff. But it'll be great for just having a reference point, and it'll be in a PDF format.
So you don't have to watch a 2-hour video every time you want to be reminded.
Yeah, and then you can print it out. It's only about, I think if you print it out so that there's, I formatted it so you can print it 4 slides to a page, and I think it's about 6 pages total, and it gives you space to write in your spreads and stuff if you want to do that.
Oh, use it for journaling.
Yeah, so you can use it as a journal worksheet.
Because I don't journal.
Yeah, fair enough. And yes, absolutely. This is these are really good spreads too if you like to work with multiple decks at a time. So grab, say for example, a really hard hitting deck, like say the Deviant Moon for me, which would be a shadow work deck. I might pair that with something really light and playful, like the Mons Tarot or the Playful Heart Tarot. And then I might pull in a third deck that's kind of neutral. And then I might pull 3 cards for each position. That's a really great way to do it if you want to layer. And then you could also add Oracle decks for more, clarifiers, and you could, there's so many ways you can play with this. Oh, I'm so glad, Kay. So yeah, we are going to continue with Self-Worth Saturday. I really wanted to get this presentation out. So keep watching. I won't necessarily have a Self-Worth Saturday every single Saturday, but we'll try to get them up somewhat regularly. And
if we end up in lockdown, we might have one every single day.
Yeah, you never know. Yay! Oh, good.
And you guys all take care of yourselves.
Yes, please take care. I'm going to wrap this up because I'm hoping to still film some more Tarot Memoirs videos today. So I'm going to try to get that done. I've got all the prep work done. Oh, I'm so glad. Yay. I'm glad you guys hung out with me. And hopefully this is very rewatchable, even if it is long. And yeah, thanks so much, you guys. Remember, as always, you can book a reading with me over at supportivetarot.com. I talk in my readings much like I talk here. So if you like my vibe, that's kind of how it goes. And I have a self-worth checkup spread that's based on those 5 positions. So if you want an outside perspective, I'm always happy to do that. So thank you so much, everybody. Take care, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.
Bye, everybody.